di editing video. Setelah editing video ini rampung dari editor, ini geser sendiri mereka ke tasnya video. Ya, geser ke tasnya video. Berarti tak sudah ada tasnya video, aku nanti sudah ada tasnya video. Tak hubungi beliau ke tasnya.
Islam plays key role in maintaining Islam as a religion of peace. To provide a dynamic and fruitful discussion, INFIT, as the initiator, collaborate with Nahdlatul Ulama and Muhammadiyah, inviting various Islamic organizations in Pakistan, Malaysia, and Tunisia to join together. The discussion aims Islam plays key role in maintaining Islam as a religion of peace. To provide a dynamic and fruitful discussion, INFIT, as the initiator, collaborate with Nahdlatul
logo ya. Tapi niki kualitasnya jelek ya. Pun ben apa? Paringi logo. Paringi logo. Logo. Terus 10%.
Islam plays key role in maintaining Islam as a religion of peace. To provide a dynamic and fruitful discussion, INFIT, as the initiator, collaborate with Nahdlatul Ulama and Muhammadiyah, inviting various Islamic organizations in Pakistan, Malaysia, and Tunisia to join together. The discussion aims to share experiences and efforts that have made by the four countries in strengthening the understanding and practice of Islam as Rahmatan and Alamin. By having this international seminar, it is expected that the idea of tolerant and peaceful Islam in Indonesia, Malaysia, Pakistan, and Tunisia will become notable and influential image for global society. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the international seminar, Building International Cooperation to Reinforce Commitments and Practices of Islam as Rahmatan and Alamin,
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, good morning, selamat petang, ladies and gentlemen. His Excellency Dr. Muhammad Hassan, the Ambassador of Pakistan to Indonesia, distinguished speakers, all participants, ladies and gentlemen. We will start our parallel session, and the title of the session is very interesting. We will talk about the strategic role of Muslim women in reinforcing and expanding the practice of Islam as Rahmatan lil Alamin. We will draw the experience from Indonesia, Malaysia, Pakistan, as well as Tunisia. So this session will cover the experiences of how Muslim women organization in 4 countries in supporting, in developing the Muslim communities in particular, as well as the global community in general, especially in the field of education, in the field of health, economic, religion, etc. And this session will also talk about how the Muslim women organization also tackling and preventing violent extremism in respective countries. So my name is Wirid. I will be the moderator for this session, and this session will be delivered in English. And if you need any translation, please you can just click the button of interpretation on the bottom of your screen. And this seminar will be the safe space for everyone to make any comment and also raise question without any discrimination. So make sure that you have updated Zoom, and you have tools that are available for you to access in any languages, be it Bahasa, English, or Arabic. And before we start, the key messages that will be delivered by His Excellency
Membangun Kerja Sama Internasional untuk
Dr. Muhammad Hassan, the Ambassador of Pakistan to Indonesia. Let me work through the
Membangun Kerja Sama Internasional untuk tulisannya masih jauh lebih jeli ya.
Nahdlatul Ulama and Muhammad fighting various Islamic organizations in Pakistan, Malaysia, Indonesia to join together.
Distinguished speaker,
Discussion aims to share experiences and efforts that have made by the 4 countries to strengthen the understanding and practice of Islam as Rahmatan. By having this international seminar, it is expected that the idea of tolerant and peaceful Islam in Indonesia, Malaysia, Pakistan, and Tunisia will become multiple and influential movements for global society.
Thank you very much
Ladies
for
and gentlemen,
your
please welcome to the international seminar, Building
start
International
the
Cooperation
first,
to Reinforce Commitments
session that will
and
be
Practices
the
of
key
Islam
messages that
as
will be
Rahmatan lil Alamin.
delivered by His Excellency Dr. Muhammad Hassan, the Ambassador of Pakistan to Indonesia. Without further ado, I would like to ask Dr. Muhammad Hassan to deliver his speech for about 7 until 10 minutes. The floor is yours. Thank you. Good afternoon, good morning, selamat petang. You are still muted, gentlemen, His Excellency. Okay, His Excellency
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Muhammad Hassan, the Ambassador of Pakistan to Indonesia.
Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala rasulihil kareem.
Participants,
Let me begin by thanking the organizers,
our
including
session,
Infit, Nahdlatul Ulama, Muhammadiyah, and embassies of Indonesia in Pakistan, Malaysia, and Tunisia for arranging this important seminar. It's an honor for me to speak on the topic of today's discussion, the strategic role of women, Muslim women, in reinforcing and expanding the practice of Islam as Rahmatan lil Alamin. History bears witness to the fact that women have always played an important role, along with men, in their duty of spreading the message of Allah.
as well as
From Mother Hawa Salamullahi Alaiha to the advent of Islam and afterward, many famous women are mentioned in the Holy Quran, Ahadith and Islamic history, whose deeds have filled the pages of history. The Holy Quran has dedicated two of his chapters, Surah Al-Maryam and Surah Al-Nisa, to women. There is also little doubt that in the formative years of Islam, women have played a vital role in the da'wah of Islam. Our starting point in this regard is the role of al-Mu'mineen Hazrat Khadijatul Kubra, who was not only the first Muslim in the world and the biggest source of encouragement to the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but was also his companion during the toughest years of his prophethood. The first Shaheed in the way of Islam, Hazrat Samia, was also a woman. During the lifetime of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, women were integral part of the intellectual discourse of Medina. After his death, many female companions, particularly the Ummahatul Mu'mineen, acted as vital custodians of the huge treasure chest of knowledge in the form of ahadith. During the later Islamic dynasties, the history is replete with the stories of incredible women who immensely contributed to the legacy of Islam as scholars, jurists, rulers, benefactresses, warriors, businesswomen, and legal experts. Women also played an important role in the struggle for Pakistan. Abadi Begum, the mother of famous Muslim leader Maulana Shaukat Ali and Maulana Muhammad Ali Johar, played a leading role during the Khilafat movement. Biyama, as she was known to be, stood like a rock behind her sons and encouraged them to stand firm in their struggle. Similarly, the role played by Miss Fatima Jinnah, sister of Qaeda-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, can ever be forgotten. Miss Fatima Jinnah was joined by thousands of women in the struggle for Pakistan. Begum Rana Liaqat Ali Khan, Begum Salma Tasadduq Hussain, Begum Jahan Ara Shah Nawaz, Lady Abdullah Harun, and Shaista Ikramullah are the few names that appear on the top. Today, Pakistani women are active in all spheres of life, including in higher education and theology. Like in most parts of the world, Pakistani women make important contributions to tempering extremist voices, preventing and resolving crises, and rebuilding communities affected by violence. Pakistan has no dearth of women working to address the political grievances, socio-economic injustices, and imbalances, in line with the teachings of Islam and Sharia. Besides performing their religious and social roles, women in Pakistan are also contributing to build the society as per the ideals of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In faith, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, for the Muslim women to play their role in the spread of Islam, it is essential that they are provided with the necessary environment and the social status guaranteed to them by Islam in the society. They are also needed to be protected from abusive cultural practices prevalent in some Muslim societies, such as honor killing, forced marriages, and gender discrimination, which are contrary to the Islamic teachings. Muslim women are also target of Islam haters and Islamophobes in Muslim minority countries. According to OIC, Islamophobia and violence against Muslims are rapidly increasing in the world. The Holy Quran has Muslim women, due to their Islamic dress code, are particularly vulnerable and often being subjected to verbal and physical abuse in the streets and workplace. Their hijab is a major target of the Islamophobes. At least in 14 countries, hijab is fully or partially banned in violation of the human rights of the Muslim women. In some countries, including the so-called biggest democracy in Asia, Violence against Muslim and Muslim women are officially promoted. In some so-called democracies, the government-sponsored radicals have been openly calling for raping Muslim girls and women with impunity.
During the lifetime of the Holy Prophet,
They have even created apps to auction Muslim women.
integral part of the intellectual
The plight of the Muslim women in occupied territories such as Palestine and Kashmir.
Many female
No need to
campaigns,
mention them.
particularly the Ummahatul Mu'mineen,
In order for the Muslim women to play a role in reinforcing Islam,
in the form
we
of
need to first
hadith.
protect her from these abuses.
During the later Islamic
Muslims
dynasties,
around the world also are needed to promote interfaith dialogue, dispel misconceptions about Islamic teachings on the status of
as
women,
scholars, juries,
and fight bigotry,
rulers,
Islamophobia,
actresses,
and hate speeches against
warriors,
Islam globally.
businesswomen.
Ladies and gentlemen, the most effective way of
Women
doing
also
so
played an important role
globally is to
in
let
struggle
Muslim
for
women
Pakistan.
come on the forefront and explain the true teachings of Islam and the Sunnah of the Holy Prophet to the ill-informed
played a leading
people.
role during
As the words coming from Muslim women will be more appealing and more convincing than saying the same by the supposed oppressor Muslim men.
Similarly, the role played by
A number of women organizations around the world are already active in this field. In many countries, including in Pakistan,
thousands of
women are playing an effective role in fighting violent extremism. During the height of terrorism in Pakistan, a decade ago, a group of Pakistani women established a group called Amn Nisa, meaning peace through women. It was aimed at de-radicalizing the Muslim youth. Similarly, a group of mothers of radicalized youth in Pakistan launched a successful campaign to bring back their sons from the extremist groups. They were so successful that they saved thousands of Pakistani Muslim youth from falling into the trap of the radicals. We are ready to share our experiences with our brothers and sisters in other Muslim countries. I would stop here and let the honorable scholars lined up after me to enlighten us on how best we can achieve this objective. I look forward for a fruitful discussion. Thank you for your patience. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very
Distinguished
much, Ambassador Muhammad
ladies and
Hassan.
gentlemen,
Please
for the
give a
Muslim
big
women to
applause
play their role
to the ambassador for a
in
very
the spread of Islam, it is
interesting,
essential
key
that
messages.
they are
I would
provided
like
with the necessary
to highlight
environment
some
and the
important
social
messages
status
that
granted to them by Islam
delivered.
in the
First,
society.
that although
They are also
Muslim
needed to be
women
protected
have
from abusive
challenges,
cultural
especially
practices
in
relevant in some
problem
Muslim
of gender
societies,
discrimination,
such
as
as honor
well as the
forced marriages,
increasing
and gender
Islamophobia that
which are
happen around the
contrary
world,
to the
and
Islamic
also
teachings.
how the radical groups
Muslim women
always
are
try
also target
to
of
recruit
Islam haters
a young
and
generation
Islamophobes
to
in
embrace
Muslim
their
minority
ideas.
countries.
But
According to OIC,
Muslim women in
Islamophobia
Pakistan, they
and
are
violence against
very
Muslims
active in
are
combating
rapidly increasing in the world.
radicalism as well as
Muslim
speak
women,
out
due
against
to their
the
Islamic
Islamophobia,
dress code, are
Islamophobia
particularly
and also
vulnerable
hate speech.
and often
I
being
think
subjected
the
to
experience
verbal and physical
of
abuse in
women
the
in
streets and
Pakistan
workplace.
can be shared,
Their hijab
and
is a
also
major target of the
have
Islamophobes.
similarities
At least in
from
14 countries, hijab is fully
some
or
countries,
partially
especially the
banned
countries
in
that we
violation
will
of the human
discuss
rights of the
today.
Muslims.
Thank you very much, the Ambassador
In some
Muhammad
countries,
Hassan.
including
So,
the so-called biggest democracy in
we will
Asia,
continue our
violence against
discussion,
Muslim and Muslim
ladies
women
and
are
gentlemen.
officially promoted.
And right now,
In some
the
so-called
speakers,
democracies, the government-sponsored
distinguished
radicals
speakers
have
from
been
countries
openly
from
calling
Indonesia,
for
from
raping Muslim
Malaysia,
girls
and
and women
also from
with impunity.
Tunisia and Pakistan.
They have even created
It's
apps
already
to
here.
auction
I
Muslim
would
women.
call, and I
The
would
plight
read
of the
their
Muslim women in
bio one
occupied
by one.
territories such as
First
Palestine
of all,
and Kashmir.
of course,
no need
I
to
would
mention.
call my chairperson,
In order for the
Andia
Muslim women
Ermarini.
to play a
She
role
is
in
the
reinforcing Islam,
chairperson of
we need to first protect
Fatayat
her
Central
from
Board
these
of
abuses.
Fatayat Nahdlatul Ulama,
Muslims
the
around the
women
world
wings of
also
Nahdlatul
are
Ulama,
needed to
and
promote
the second,
interfaith
Professor
dialogue,
Dr. Alimatul
dispel
Qibtiyah.
misconceptions about Islamic
She
teachings
is
on the status
also
of
the
women
one of the
and
main leader in Muhammadiyah Indonesia, as well as the Commissioner of the National Commission
Ladies and
on
gentlemen, the
Entitled
most
Chapter
effective way of doing so
of Indonesia.
globally is to let
We
Muslim
also
women
have
come on
Professor
the forefront
Dr. Munjia
to explain
Sulhi
the true teachings of
from
Islam and the Sunnah of the
Zaytuna
Holy Prophet
University,
to the
Tunisia.
ill-informed
Assalamualaikum,
people.
Professor.
As the words coming from
And the
Muslim
fourth,
women
we will have
will be
Miss
more appealing
Sehat
and more
Kamran,
convincing
the
than
former
saying the
member
same
of the Senate of
by the
Pakistan
supposed
from
oppressor Muslim men.
IRC-RA Pakistan.
A number of women organizations around
Assalamualaikum,
the world are
Senator
already
Sehat
active
Kamran.
in this field. In many countries, including in
We
Pakistan,
also have
women
our
are playing
sister
effective role
from
in
Malaysia,
fighting
International
violent
Islamic
extremism.
University of Malaysia, Dr.
During the
Fatimah
height of terrorism
Az-Zahra
in Pakistan,
binti
a
Syed.
decade ago, a group of
Assalamualaikum,
Pakistani women
Dr.
established a
Fatimah.
group called Amn Nisa,
So
meaning
now we will
peaceful
proceed
women.
to our
It was aimed
discussion
at
today.
de-radicalizing
As I
Muslim
mentioned
youth.
earlier, that our topic today
Similarly,
is about
a
the
group of
strategic
mothers
role
of
of Muslim
radicalized
women
youth in Pakistan
in
launched a
reinforcing
successful campaign to bring back their
the
sons
practice
from
of Islam as
extremist groups.
Rahmatan lil
They
Alamin,
were so successful
and every
that
speaker
they saved
will
thousands of
deliver their
Pakistani
presentation
Muslim youth
about
from falling
their
into the
role
trap of their
in their
We are
organization
ready to share
in
our
reinforcing
experiences with
the
our
values of
brothers
Rahmatan lil
and
Alamin.
sisters in other
So
Muslim
every
countries.
presenter, every speaker,
Stop here and let the honorable
will
scholars
have around
render after me
7
to
until
enlighten
10
us on
minutes
how best we
to
can
deliver
achieve
their
this
presentation,
objective.
and
I
then
look
after
forward for
that
a
we will
fruitful
have
discussion. Thank you for
Q&A
your
session.
patience. Wassalamu alaikum.
Okay, without further ado, I would give the first opportunity to Miss Anggia Ermarini, the chairperson of Central Board Fatayat Nahdlatul Ulama. Please, Mbak Anggia, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Terima kasih Mbak Riri. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asrofil mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in amma ba'du. Excellencies Ambassador Muhammad Hasan dan semua speakers yang saya hormati, Mbak Riri, moderator, dan kemudian teman-teman dari Infit, Bapak Ibu sekalian yang bersama-sama dengan kami semua di webinar kali ini. Mudah-mudahan kita semuanya sehat dan selalu mendapatkan keberkahan dalam semua langkah-langkah kita. Pandemi masih ada di sekitar kita, tapi dengan teknologi kita bisa tetap sharing, dan saya sangat apresiasi sekali tentang acara kali ini tentang perempuan dan peran-peran mereka, peran lembaga-lembaga perempuan itu atau perempuan secara individu terhadap bagaimana mengejawantahkan tentang Islam rahmatan lil alamin. Izinkan saya pakai bahasa Indonesia biar lebih lancar. Bapak Ibu dan yang saya hormati dan semuanya yang hadir dalam forum kali ini, Fatayat Nahdlatul Ulama adalah yang tadi sempat disampaikan oleh Mbak Riri adalah BANOM, ya, di Badan Otonom atau Wings of Nahdlatul Ulama, yang terdiri dari perempuan muda Nahdlatul Ulama. Jadi perempuan-perempuan muda punya spesifik karena hanya sampai di usia 45 kami bisa di Fatayat NU. Nah, pertama kali ketika mungkin bisa saya kirim slide ya, nggak mungkin bisa ditampilkan. Pertama kali dilahirkan tahun 50 dan awalnya adalah semangat pembentukan Fatayat NU setelah Nahdlatul Ulama tahun 26, lalu kemudian tahun 50 Fatayat NU dibentuk adalah untuk mewadahi para perempuan Nahdlatul Ulama, dan yang paling utama adalah bergerak di bidang pendidikan. Kita tahu pada saat itu tahun 50 pendidikan terhadap perempuan tidak semasif hari ini, tidak se-equal dengan laki-laki hari ini. Oleh karena itu, Nahdlatul Ulama merasa sangat penting untuk membentuk BANOM baru yang terdiri dari para perempuan-perempuan di Nahdlatul Ulama. Fatayat NU terdiri dari secara nasional, ada di pimpinan nasional, lalu kemudian kita punya 34 di pimpinan wilayah, lalu kita punya 490 di pimpinan wilayah cabang, lalu kemudian ada 2000 PAC itu adalah di kecamatan, lalu kemudian ada 21.000 lebih di PAC ya, di kecamatan, di ranting, dan ada di beberapa lebih dari, kita belum punya data tentang anak ranting itu di bawah desa. Ranting itu di desa. Jadi di desa-desa terutama di Jawa itu setiap desa kami punya struktur di Fatayat NU. Lalu di beberapa negara termasuk di Pakistan juga, Excellencies, just report information for you that we have pakai bahasa Inggris nggak apa-apa ya, nanti ada yang menerjemahkan. Kita punya PCI itu pimpinan cabang istimewa di Pakistan juga. Jadi teman-teman Fatayat NU yang ada di Indonesia kemudian sekolah di sana, mereka mendirikan Fatayat NU di daerahnya tertentu. Terutama saat ini di Pakistan ada juga. Di dalam strukturnya area yang kita lakukan itu tidak hanya dakwah. Dakwah adalah intinya syiar dari Fatayat NU, tetapi kita juga concern di isu tentang pendidikan, lalu kemudian tentang sosial, ekonomi juga, lalu kemudian juga kesehatan, lalu juga di advokasi, yang ini menjadi program-program yang kita turunkan menjadi program-program yang bisa menyentuh langsung kepada masyarakat atau perempuan dan anak. Fokus dalam aturan kami di dalam kitab suci organisasi kami ini di PDPRT, kami berfokus untuk perempuan dan peran-peran. Jadi mulai dari lembaga Tuhan anak-anak sampai kemudian bagaimana perempuan, lalu kemudian berlanjut tentang bagaimana hari ini di Indonesia sedang memperjuangkan tentang bagaimana para perempuan ini atau masyarakat di sekitar kita tidak tereliminasi, terkurangi kekerasan seksual misalnya, seperti itu bagian dari konsep ulama adalah sejak dari mulai kelahirannya sampai hari ini selalu berkembang tentang fokus yang dilakukan oleh Fatayat dengan mengikuti perkembangan zaman, tentunya dengan mengikuti apa yang sedang dihadapi oleh zaman termasuk ketika kita pertama kali ketika yang hari ini perempuan dan anak-anak menjadi salah satu frontliner, pertama kali jadi salah satu pionir dalam kasus atau dalam kasus-kasus ekstremisme atau radikal, itu juga bagian concern kami, dan itu adalah untuk tema utama kami dalam bidang dakwah, untuk bisa memberikan keterampilan dan memberikan pengetahuan yang lebih kuat lagi, terutama kepada para daiyah Fatayat NU. Sebagian besar anggota Fatayat NU adalah masif hari ini guru, kemudian mereka adalah ustadzah, mereka adalah Bunyai adalah ulama perempuan di komunitas masing-masing. Oleh karena itu penguatan pengetahuan dan keterampilan terhadap para ulama perempuan ini sangat penting sekali di Fatayat NU. Bahkan kita terus-menerus beberapa dua minggu yang lalu secara terus-menerus kita bikin halakoh tentang dakwah yang ramah terhadap dakwah yang ramah bagi para pendaiyah Fatayat. Kemudian ada 20 slide berikutnya. Nah, secara tradisional atau secara naturally kita di Fatayat NU itu mempunyai namanya majelis taklim majelis taklim hampir di setiap hari, kalau kita potret dari atas gitu ya, di Indonesia dari atas begitu, hampir setiap hari para jamaah di Fatayat Tahrif selalu mempunyai kegiatan. Apakah mereka menggunakan majelis taklim sholawatan, atau mungkin pakai yasinan, atau mungkin pengajian langsung dengan tema-tema tertentu, atau ngaji pakai kitab atau yang lainnya. Jadi kalau kita potreting secara nasional, hampir setiap hari, bahkan mungkin setiap hari puluhan kegiatan yang dilakukan oleh Fatayat NU, terutama yang ada di desa-desa. Mereka setiap minggu, setiap desa, setiap minggu mempunyai rutinan yang memang di situ adalah forum untuk bisa berkomunikasi, dan forum kalau menurut kami forum yang membangun karakter bangsa itu forum-forum yang kecil-kecil yang dilakukan oleh teman-teman yang ada di lapangan. Lalu kemudian, nah ini adalah beberapa prinsip dakwah Islam Rahmatan lil Alamin yang mendasari setiap langkah dakwah yang dilakukan oleh Fatayat NU. Dalam ini diberikan ketika kalau dalam Fatayat, di Fatayat itu kami punya pendidikan kader yang secara formal ya, bertahap, mulai dari LKD, jadi pendidikan latihan dasar, lalu kemudian organisasikan lanjut, lalu kemudian ada juga PKN, pendidikan kepemimpinan nasional perempuan dan anak. Prinsip-prinsip ini dengan berbagai muatannya, disesuaikan dengan muatannya, ini menjadi prinsip dasar yang harus diketahui, yang harus dimiliki oleh setiap kader Fatayat NU. Pertama adalah Islam adalah agama yang cinta damai. Lalu kemudian ini kita menggunakan bagaimana dakwah yang dilakukan oleh teman-teman Fatayat NU adalah dakwah yang menggunakan approach yang ramah, approach yang damai, approach yang tidak kemudian memaksa, approach yang tidak memaki. Itu yang kemudian yang kita kembangkan. Keterampilan yang dilakukan di pendidikan dengan kami itu kita lakukan, kita berikan prinsip-prinsip ini dengan latihan-latihan. Nah, yang saya katakan tadi akan terus berkembang dengan muatan lebih besar atau muatan lebih berat lagi ketika pelatihan itu lebih tinggi. Di PKN pasti tentunya lebih, di pelatihan kepemimpinan nasional pasti muatannya jauh lebih besar dan akan memotret lebih luas kasus daripada misalnya pelatihan yang ada di atau radikal. Lalu kemudian tentang Islam, agama yang universal, nasional dan berperadaban, memuliakan manusia, itu kemanusiaan menjadi poin ketika kita melangkah dalam intervensi isu apapun. Jadi memanusiakan manusia, mengangkat kemanusiaan ini sebagian besar penting sekali ketika bicara tentang Islam. Tentunya tidak hanya bicara tentang sholat atau puasa, tapi juga bicara tentang ekonomi, bagaimana manusia bisa oleh karena itu berkeadaban secara lebih baik, bisa sejahtera, pendidikan dan lain sebagainya. Lalu kemudian prinsip aswaja, yaitu tasamuh, lalu tawasud dan tawazud serta iktidal, ini menjadi landasan juga. Dan tidak hanya sekedar bagaimana kita memahami arti dari tasamuh terhadap, tetapi bagaimana kita sebagai kader Fatayat NU yang akan menjadi referensi di tengah masyarakat. Saya katakan referensi karena biasanya kader Fatayat NU adalah motivator desa, lalu kemudian penggerak desa, punyai guru. Ini biasanya mereka menjadi referensi di tengah-tengah masyarakat. Prinsip-prinsip aswaja ini, prinsip-prinsip ahli sunnah wal jamaah ini juga harus dipahamkan, lalu kemudian juga mampu untuk bisa menjadi cara memecahkan masalah ketika ada di lapangan. Tidak hanya masalah-masalah besar yang ada di nasional, tapi masalah-masalah yang dihadapi oleh masyarakat secara langsung. Karena saya katakan tadi biasanya kader-kader Fatayat menjadi referensi di tengah masyarakat. Lalu kemudian konten dakwah, yaitu memadukan keislaman dan kebangsaan. Jadi semangat hubbul waton binal iman ini menjadi landasan ketika kita berbangsa, gitu. Jadi bagaimana mulai dari ini menjadi prinsip kami ya, bagaimana mulai dari sangat dini masyarakat fatayat maksud saya fatayat karena adalah fatayat dalam dakwahnya itu mulai mengenalkan tentang keindonesiaan, mulai mengenalkan tentang keislaman tentu, mulai mengenalkan kebangsaan. Jadi ini semangat atau ya semangat spirit ya berkebutuhan dengan iman ini menjadi bagian tak terpisahkan dalam dakwah fatayatnya. Lalu kemudian tentang mayoritas melindungi dan minoritas melindungi minoritas menghormati mayoritas. Ini adalah cara tentunya untuk menyesuaikan dengan yang utama ini untuk menuju kondisi yang damai, menuju kondisi yang lebih berkeadaban. Pertama adalah Islam, lalu kemudian tentang membangun akhlak dan jati diri, lalu kemudian ini bangsa. Nah, membangun akhlak dan jati diri bangsa ini bukan hal yang mudah, dan fatayat NU menggunakan instrumen yang tadi saya punya majelis taklim itu adalah cara tampilan yang sarana atau wadah mendeliver tentang bagaimana nilai-nilai tentang berkeindonesiaan dan keislaman. Jadi nilai-nilai di situ, nilai-nilai yang kita punya tentang keislaman dan keindonesiaan, Islam yang ramah, Islam yang moderat, Islam yang plural, Islam yang adil, atau Indonesia yang plural juga, tentang Indonesia yang sangat mencintai sesama dan lain sebagainya. Itu mulai diajarkan dan disebarluaskan melalui majelis. Lalu kemudian tentang Islam. Jadi di dalam majelis taklim yang dipunyai oleh fatayat tidak hanya bicara tentang sholat puasa atau membayar zakat, tapi juga membangun karakter, termasuk di dalamnya adalah isu-isu yang lain. Jadi misalnya isu tentang penurunan angka stunting. Lalu kemudian penting bagaimana pendidikan Islam anak kita supaya menjadi generasi yang lebih unggul, bisa menjadi generasi emas. Bagaimana di forum-forum itu yang kita gunakan untuk mendeliver nilai yang sudah kita sepakati bersama, yang Thailand itu sepakati bersama, lalu kemudian kepada masyarakat lebih luas lagi. Ini adalah beberapa slide berikutnya. Ini adalah
Sorry, you have 2 more minutes. Sorry.
Juga
2 menit lagi.
Dan tidak hanya ya udah kalau begitu yang ini di skip aja. Ini best practices aja, saya pakai best practices dari fatayat NU di slide berikutnya. Forum Dakwah Fatayat NU yang tadi saya sebutkan, yang punya majelis taklim, lalu kemudian ada gerakan perlindungan anak dari tindak kekerasan, itu bagian dari model dakwah. Jadi model dakwahnya tidak hanya tadi saya katakan tidak hanya berbicara tentang sholat dan puasa, tapi juga bagaimana kita melindungi, kita membangun sebuah masyarakat yang lebih baik. Lalu kemudian saya akan masuk ke di poinnya tidak ada. Beberapa waktu yang lalu 2018 kita fatayat NU menyelenggarakan yang Muslim Forum, itu adalah dan menghasilkan deklarasi Jakarta. Itu adalah forum perempuan muda Muslim yang mendasari keislaman dan kebangsaan. Itu adalah bahwa Indonesia punya penduduk Muslim yang sangat besar sekali, dan perempuan Indonesia punya kesempatan yang besar ketika ingin menjadi apapun. Jadi ketika menjadi politisi seperti saya misalnya, boleh bisa kemudian menjadi guru, menjadi pengusaha, dan ini penting sekali untuk di scale up dan kemudian sharing ke beberapa negara yang bisa saling menguatkan Islaman. Jadi bicara tentang Islam tidak hanya bicara tentang ajaran yang hanya di masjid saja. Jadi di dalam forum tersebut kita bicara tentang pendidikan, kita bicara tentang fashion, bahkan karena fashion juga bagian dari kalau di Indonesia hampir semuanya, saya tidak tahu pastinya angkanya, tapi Muslim di Indonesia hampir semuanya pakai jilbab. Dan fashion di Indonesia, fashion Muslim di Indonesia luar biasa. Dan ini juga kita kita ramu tentunya untuk bagaimana segala aspek atau isu yang ada yang kita bicarakan ini menuju bagaimana Islam ini menjadi ajaran Islam yang rahmatan lil alamin ini benar-benar menjadi bagian yang terpisahkan dalam jamaah Islam di seluruh Indonesia. Lalu kemudian hal lain yang kita punyai adalah jaringan Fatayat NU dari nasional sampai ke desa. Lalu kemudian beberapa tokoh NU yang menjadi referensi di tengah-tengah masyarakat atau bahkan mempunyai posisi yang strategis di tengah masyarakat itu bisa menjadi kapital bagi Fatayat NU, terutama ketika akan mendeliver program-programnya, ketika akan memberikan intervensi kepada masyarakat yang lebih luas. Jadi di dalam saya pikir itu tidak hanya bicara sholat puasa atau membayar zakat, tapi juga terima kasih Mbak Wirid dan semua masuk di dalamnya adalah isu-isu yang lain. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Stunting.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much to Ms. Anggia Ermarini
menjadi generasi yang lebih
for very interesting presentation. I will highlight some role of Fatayat NU, especially in interpreting and also implementing the values of Islam as Rahmatan lil Alamin, or the Islam as the blessing of universe in their daily program and also activities of Fatayat NU, which structurally have the board from the central board until the village level. So the total of members of that NU is around 8 million. I think it's a huge organization that have very established structures, and their activities not only through the dakwah activities or religious activities, but also dealing with many issues like health, education, as well as preventing radicalism and also extremism in Indonesia. Okay, I'm sorry because we have like a very constrained time, so if I remind you about the time, please don't be offended by that. Okay, and I will call the next speaker, our Profesor Dr.
Itu adalah Forum Perempuan Muda Muslim yang
mendasari
itu adalah
Profesor Dr. Monjia Sualhi from Azzetuna University Indonesia to deliver her presentation.
Ketika ingin menjadi apapun.
And jadi, as I mentioned that Professor Monjia, you have 7 until 10 minutes, please.
Guru menjadi pengusaha, dan ini penting sekali untuk di scale up dan kemudian sharing
the time is yours, Profesor Monjia.
شكرا
saling menguatkan.
بسم الله الرحمن
bicara tentang
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد خاتم الأنبياء والمرسلين.
Tentang
سعادة سفير إندونيسيا في تونس الأستاذ محمد حسن.
Jadi di dalam forum tersebut
السيدة
kita bicara tentang pendidikan, kita bicara tentang fashion,
السادة والسيدات المحاضرون،
juga bagian dari
السادة المنظمون لهذه الندوة أعتز بها كثيرا لأنها خصصت للمرأة دورا هاما في تعزيز قيم الرحمة. ورأيت من وجهة نظري أن الإسلام دين الرحمة هو الدين الذي اعتنى بالمرأة، فقد حرر حواء من تهمة إخراج الإنسان من الجنة، وأشاد بتلك الملكة العظيمة، وأشاد بمريم أم عيسى عليه السلام، والنساء في الحضارة الإسلامية كان لهن دور كبير في نشر دين الرحمة. ورأيت أن المرأة اليوم تحتاج إلى
itu
كم
bisa
من
menjadi
هائل من المعلومات
menjadi
حول هذا الدين
kapital
الذي لم
bagi kita
يكن
yang
دين
ikut
عبادة فقط
ketika akan
وإنما كان دين عمل
mendeliver
ودين تسامح
program-programnya,
ودين عالم.
ketika akan memberikan
وسأتكلم
kepada
في
masyarakat
هذه
yang
العناصر
lebih
إن
luas.
سمح لي الوقت.
Saya pikir itu
شمولية الرحمة في الإسلام،
lagi.
التعايش السلمي من مقتضيات الرحمة،
Terima kasih Mbak.
التسامح والاعتدال في القرآن من مقتضيات الرحمة. وسنقف عند مصطلح التسامح بعض الدقائق. ثم العفو في الإسلام رحمة. الرحمة تؤسس لمجتمعات قائمة على المحبة والمودة والأخوة، كما أن الرحمة ضرورة إنسانية وعالمية. وأذكر بنماذج من الرحمة والتسامح والتعايش، ثم التطبيق العملي للرحمة وماذا يجب علينا نحن اليوم، وأنتهي إلى بعض النتائج والتوصيات. بالنسبة للرحمة كتبها سبحانه وتعالى على نفسه، كتب ربكم على نفسه الرحمة. اسمه سبحانه وتعالى من أسمائه الرحمن الرحيم. وعن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: لما خلق الله الخلق كتب في كتابه فهو عنده فوق العرش إن رحمتي سبقت غضبي. كما أن الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم أرسله ربه رحمة للعالمين، وقال عن نفسه عليه الصلاة والسلام: إنما أنا رحمة مهدئة. وأعلمنا سبحانه وتعالى أن صفة الرسول عليه الصلاة والسلام في هذه الآية من سورة التوبة: لقد جاءكم رسول من أنفسكم عزيز عليه ما عنتم حريص عليكم بالمؤمنين رؤوف رحيم. فتياتنا ونساؤنا في حاجة إلى معرفة هذه الرحمة الشاملة للعالم كله، حتى لا تنتمينا إلى المجموعات الإرهابية المتطرفة. بالنسبة للرحمة كذلك هي أن يتغلب الإنسان على الغضب، أن يتجنب خطاب الكراهية، أن يتجنب خطاب التمييز. فميزة الرحمة في الإسلام أنها كذلك عامة تشمل جميع خلق الله من بشر وحيوان ونبات وأرض وغير ذلك. إذا انطلقنا إلى التعايش السلمي وهو من مقتضيات الرحمة، أقف عند هذه الآية الكريمة: يا أيها الذين آمنوا ادخلوا في السلم كافة ولا تتبعوا خطوات الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين. فالآيات هذه تدعو إلى العفو، إلى الصفح، إلى كظم الغيظ، إلى الصبر على ما يدور في هذا العالم مما نراه نحن فيه شيء من الانحراف. لأن دورنا بما أننا ننتمي إلى دين الرحمة أن نرحم الناس وأن نساعدهم على دعوة متسامحة من رب العالمين سبحانه وتعالى. هنا أضيف إلى التعايش قيمة التسامح والاعتدال. ورأيت أن الإسلام دين السماحة والصفح. قال تعالى: فاصفح الصفح الجميل. وقال عز وجل: خذ العفو وأمر بالعرف وأعرض عن الجاهلين. نقف عند هذا المصطلح. لماذا؟ لأن هناك من يدعي أن التسامح هو عمل فوقي، أي أنا أقوى منك فأنا أتسامح معك. لا، ليس هذا التسامح أن نتجاوز عن بعض أخطائنا وأن نتعايش رغم اختلافاتنا. رغم اختلافاتنا نتعايش. العفو رحمة في الإسلام. العفو من شيم الكرام الذين تربوا على قيمة الرحمة. سبحانه وتعالى غرس فينا عبر القرآن هذه الصفة، وكان العفو من شيم الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم. انتبهوا لهذا الحديث: سرق أحدهم حذاءه فقال الرسول عليه الصلاة والسلام: اللهم إن كان محتاجا فبارك له فيما أخذ، وإن لم يكن محتاجا سبحانه وتعالى من أسماء ذنب يذنبه صلى الله عليه وسلم. يا رسول الله كم أنت رحيم وأنت قدوة. لما خلق الله الخلق أتمر إلى شهادات في عفوه صلى الله عليه وسلم المعتدين رحمة بهم. عن أنس رضي الله عنه قال: كنت أمشي مع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وعليه برد نجراني غليظ العالمين، فأدركه أعرابي فجذبه بردائه جذبة شديدة، فنظرت إلى صفحة عنق النبي وقد أثرت بها حاشية الرداء من شدة جذبه، ثم قال: يا محمد مر لي من مال الله الذي عنده. فالتفت إليه صلى الله عليه وسلم فضحك ثم أمر له بعطاء. سبحان الله على هذه الرحمة وعلى هذه الأخلاق التي يجب علينا أن نتحلى بها اليوم نساء ورجالا. شهادة أخرى عن ابن مسعود رضي الله عنه: سمع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لما ضربه قومه فأدموا قدميه كريمتين، فكان يمسح الدم عن وجهه ويقول: اللهم اغفر لقومي فإنهم لا يعلمون. ولما هجم عليه أبناء الطائف يرمونه بالحجارة حتى دميت قدماه ولم يستطع المشي، طلب منه صحابته أن يدعوا عليه، فقال: اللهم ائت بأهل الطائف مؤمنين، فجاءوه معلنين إسلامهم. سنة 9 للهجرة. شوفوا سبحانه، لما ضربوه ودم وجهه ماذا قال؟ ولما ضربوه ودمت قدمه ماذا قال؟ أي رحمة هذه يا رسول الله عليه الصلاة والسلام. كذلك هنا أذكر تسامح الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم عند المقدرة مع آل مكة يوم فتح مكة. خافه الناس إلا أنه قال لهم: ما تظنون أني فاعل بكم؟ قالوا: خير أخ كريم وابن أخ كريم. فقال لهم: أنتم طلقاء في شيء ما أجمل العفو عند المقت. وقد برز حلم النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ورحمته في هذا الموقف الذي سار عليه الأنبياء من قبله وسار عليه المقتدون الصالحون من بعده. الرحمة تؤسس لمجتمعات قائمة على المحبة والمودة والأخوة. وهنا أريد أن أقول إن الإسلام دين عالمي، دين رحمة، دين لا يرفض حقوق الإنسان ويتماهى معها تمام التماهي، لأنه يكرم الإنسان. ونقرأ هذه الآية: يقول تعالى: والمؤمنون والمؤمنات بعضهم أولياء بعض، لأن هناك إخوة يساند بعضهم بعض ويتعاونون فيما ينصر أحدهم الآخر. إنما المؤمنون إخوة. وترون أن كلمة المؤمن هنا جاءت عامة، ليس هذا تشمل كل المؤمنين. الأخوة والرحمة ليست كلمة تقال، إنما ممارسة تساعد الأخ الإنسانية على الخروج من الدوامة التي يعيش فيها بواسطة تغيير السلوك السلبي نحو السلوك الأفضل، وأفضل السلوك سلوك الرحمة سبحانه وتعالى. الرحمة تبني مجتمعا قائما على التكافؤ، أن يكفل المجتمع الفرد، وأن يكفل الفرد الفرد، وأن تكفل الأسرة الفرد. وهنا نرى أن هذه ضرورة وقال يؤيدها الحديث النبوي: المؤمن للمؤمن كالبنيان المرصوص يشد بعضه بعضا، فلا يجب أن يكون هناك تطاعن واختلاف وحروب بين الأخوة. ويختص التكافل في الإسلام بالمرض والعجز والضعفاء والمحتاجين والأرامل واليتامى والفقراء والمتضررين من الحروب ومن الأزمات الطبيعية. وهذه عين الرحمة، كما أنه يشمل كل أنواع البشر حسب لغاتهم، باختلاف لغاتهم وأديانهم وعقائدهم وغير ذلك. فالرحمة والتكافل هنا تشمل الجميع. إذن الرحمة هي مسؤولية الجميع. مجتمع الرحمة قائم على تحمل المسؤولية، إذ تفرض الحياة الإنسانية أن يتحمل كل فرد في المجتمع قسطا منه. كلكم راع وكلكم مسؤول عن رعيته. تقتضي هذه المسؤولية أن يتآخى الناس وأن يتحلوا بضمير حي يقظ يراعي الله في كل تصرف. ومن مقتضيات الإنسانية أن ننبه المخطئ إلى خطئه وندعوه إلى تغيير السلوك. إذن هنا هذا يكون في رحمة، يكون في لي. ولو كنت فضل غير القلب لانفضوا من حولك. وترون محبة الرسول عليه الصلاة والسلام لأنه رحيم، ولما هجم عليه القلب إلى اليوم والناس بشبهته. إذن هنا لماذا الرحمة ضرورة إنسانية عالمية؟ يا نساء المسلمات، يا رجال المسلمين، نظرا لوحدة الأصل رغم الاختلاف، الناس خلقوا من نفس واحد وخالقهم رب واحد، بدلالة قوله تعالى: يا أيها الناس اتقوا الله ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. إذن الناس كلهم من أصل واحد، الناس كلهم لهم الحق في الكرامة والعيش دون تمييز على أساس الدين أو اللون أو العرق، حسب قوله تعالى: ولقد كرمنا بني آدم. هنا لما قال كرمنا بني آدم، بني آدم جاء على العموم، لم يقل كرمنا المسلمين فقط، وإنما قال وكرمنا بني آدم المقتدون الصالحون من. إذن القرآن يعلم أن سنة الله في البشر على الاختلاف، والاختلاف يحتاج إلى التعايش السلمي الإسلامي السام كما ذكرنا، والاعتدال نظرا لاختلاف. يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم. هنا شوفوا كلمة لتعارف. التعارف يكون بالرحمة ويكون بالتسامح ويكون بالاعتدال. إذن ثم نجد كلمة يا أيها الناس عامة تشمل المؤمن وغير المؤمن، كلهم إخوة في الإنسانية. هنا لابد أن نربي بناتنا ونساءنا على هذه الرحمة. كذلك
Sorry, Professor, you have one more minute. I'm sorry, you have one more minute to wrap up the session.
One minute. Yes. سأقف عند بعض العناوين. من متطلبات الرحمة تبني مجتمعا ما يخضع لحقوق الإنسان، حرية المعتقد، أن يكفل المجتمع الديانة السماوية مصدرها واحد، أن تكفل الأسرة الفرد، التعامل مع أهل الكتاب، مجادلتهم بالتي هي أحسن. القرآن يحرم الحديث النبوي ويمنع العنف. أن التطبيق العملي للرحمة هي رحمة عالمية، لا بد أن الدعوات تكون لها عالمية. فرأينا هنا أن الرسول عليه الصلاة والسلام كان من المتسامحين. ويعني مع الأسف الوقت ضيق جدا، الوثيقة عندكم أقف فقط عند حلف الفضول في مكة، ووثيقة المدينة التي تعطي حقوق الكل، كل من يسكن في هذه المدينة المكرمة. إذن هناك المطلوب اليوم، المطلوب إثراء الحوار، عقد ندوات مثل هذه الندوة مهمة جدا. إذن الرحمة، وأثبتت التجارب اليوم أن الإسلام هو دين التعايش، وأن الحروب التي نراها والنزاعات التي نراها وغيرها هي أمور يعني لا بد من استثمارها في صفة الرحمة. وكيف ذلك؟ لا بد من نشر هذا الدين وإصلاح البرامج في التعليم واستثمار وسائل الإعلام. المثقفون يدلون بدلوهم لنشر هذه الثقافة، التربية على القيم الأخلاقية، المعالجة التربوية والتعليمية ضرورية اليوم، إصلاح الفكر الديني ضروري اليوم. وشكرا لكم على ما قدمتم اليوم. بعد أنا أريد أن أذهب إلى بعض التوسيع. الرحمة والتسامح والاعتدال خلق وممارسة فردية وجماعية. هنا الرحمة والتسامح والاعتدال قيم إنسانية تقتضي أن يقبلها الإنسان وتتطلب منا كيفية نشرها وكيفية العمل بها. الحقيقة نصف دقيقة لتجربتي في هذا المجال. تجربتي في هذا المجال حقيقة أنا لي كتاب قراءة نسوية للإسلام وضعت فيه ما رحمة الإسلام بالنساء ودورهن، لي كتاب الإنسان والحوار الأنسنة والحوار والتعايش في الإسلام، أثبتت فيه كيف أن الإسلام دين الرحمة والدين شمولي والدين عالمي. وآخر الكتب هذه هو إشكالية العنف ضد المرأة في الإسلام، دراسة تحليلية ونقدية بينت فيها أن الإسلام بريء من كل أنواع العنف وبريء من التطرف. وفي تونس مثلا لنا تجربة مهمة جدا في جامعة الزيتونة، هذه الجامعة أقدم جامعة في العالم، وهي أقدم جامعة تقوم على الإسلام الوسطي والمعتدل، وهي أقدم جامعة تقاوم التطرف البارحة وأمس واليوم. كذلك لي تجربة مع الاتحاد الوطني للمرأة، وهو منظمة كبيرة في مقاومة التطرف العنيف، ومع جمعية قادرات، ومع جمعية عالمية، ومع جمعية النساء والريادة. كلمة أخيرة، فدورنا اليوم أن نعزز انتشار الرحمة في الإسلام. وشكرا لكم والعفو. ويكون بالتسامح ويكون بالاعتدال. ثم نجد
Thank you very much for your very comprehensive interpretation. I'm sorry to cut your presentation because we have limited time, but I really appreciate that you have written a lot of books, and I hope that your book can be translated into Bahasa as well as English. Later we can read the books very soon, I hope. Thank you, Professor Dr. Munjia. Later we'll have Q&A after all
شكرا. هي بسبب الترجمة إلى
شكرا. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished speaker and all participants, we will proceed to the third speaker that will be delivered by Senator Ziarah from Pakistan. You have 7 until 10 minutes to deliver your presentation, and again, I'm so sorry that I have to remind you about the time. Okay, please, Senator Ziarah, the floor is yours.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Respected panelists, excellencies, dignitaries, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. May peace be upon you all. Let me commence by extending felicitations to all. I'm honored to share my thoughts on a significant subject such as this. I'm confident that today's deliberations will help remove the misunderstandings often associated with women's role in Islam. I hope that the process initiated by the International NGO Forum on Indonesian Development in collaboration with Nahdlatul, Ulama and Muhammadiyah will continue with same zeal and vigor in the coming years. Ladies and gentlemen, Islam teaches compassion, kindness and tolerance for all. Allah Almighty intended Islam to be mercy for all the world. It was not introduced to be mercy for only Muslims, but for the entire mankind. Throughout Quran and Hadith, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has repeatedly emphasized on showing kindness to fellow human beings and has promised a great reward to help those in distress. Through the Holy Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has explained just how precious human life is by stating, whoever kills a soul, it is as if he had slain all of mankind, and whoever saves one, it is as if he had saved all of mankind. Ayat 5:32 Surah
لنا
Al-Ma'idah.
تجربة مهمة جدا في جامعة الزيتونة.
Dear
هذه
colleagues,
الجامعة
Islam became popular as a religion
وهي أقوى
because it is a
جامعة
great
تقوم
equalizer.
على الإسلام الوسطي
It does not believe in
وهي أقدم
discrimination of
جامعة
any
تقاوم
sort.
التطرف
Everyone is
البيئي
equal in the eyes of the Almighty,
كذلك
Allah
لتجربة
subhanahu wa
مع
ta'ala.
الاتحاد الوطني
No one is superior from the other because of their ethnicity, gender, or the color of their skin. Similarly, men and women hold an equal status before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are a lot of misconceptions regarding women's role and position in Islam. As a Muslim society, we need to dispel them.
وشكرا لكم والعفو.
Women hold a significant position in a Muslim society and serve many important roles.
Thank you very much for
At the
your
micro level, they are the center of a
comprehensive
Muslim household,
interpretation.
and at the macro, they are important pillars for social
Because we
cohesion.
have limited time, but,
Any society which has a considerable female participation has a higher degree of social cohesion, which in turn promotes economic growth, good governance, and helps in the formulation of an inclusive, harmonious society.
Thank you, Professor.
Ladies and
Dr.
gentlemen,
Mutia.
rather
Later
than
we
talking
have,
about the
Q&A
certain
after
organizations,
all the
I would like to talk about my country, Pakistan, and wish to highlight the role of women in supporting education, health, economic and social development, and in promoting peace and countering violent
We will
extremism.
proceed to the third
Pakistan is a country in which women have played a pivotal role since its creation. The country has produced generations of such great women. They have served and continue to serve to multiple strategic roles in Pakistan.
I'm so sorry that I
And
have
despite
to
difficulties,
remind
they
you
have made their mark in the
time.
world. As mothers,
Please,
homemakers,
Senator,
teachers,
say hi.
bankers,
The
soldiers,
floor
scientists,
is yours.
athletes, and fighter pilots. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. They have been excelling in every field, the most gracious, all walks of life, merciful. Alongside their male counterparts, be it in the field as a farmer or a laborer, or in the highest distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Pakistan has produced exemplary women, may peace be upon you, who became a symbol of courage and strength to defeat violent ideologies. To all. The mother of our nation, the Honorable Mohtarma Fatima Jinnah, not only stood alongside her brother Muhammad Ali Jinnah, the founder of Pakistan, but also successfully led the independence campaign in her own right. With women's role in Islam. The great leader Shaheed Mohtarma Benazir Bhutto is one such example. She was a daughter, wife, mother, the first elected woman Prime Minister of the Muslim world, and twice elected youngest and the only female Prime Minister of the country. Honorable Benazir Bhutto challenged extremism and terrorism by promoting strategies for peace to help Pakistan become a prosperous and a progressive country. She challenged traditional norms and emerged victorious in the face of great adversity. She laid her life but shot the entire man. She was killed while she challenged the terrorists. Throughout Quran, but she has made her mark, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has repeatedly emphasized on Zayn, the youngest ever Nobel Prize laureate and the girl known all over the world for her human rights advocacy for education and for women is another case in point. Just how precious, likewise the first ever Lieutenant General of Pakistan, Lieutenant General Nigar Johar, is currently serving as the Colonel Commandant of Army Medical Corps. She is the first ever woman in the country's history to hold this position. Recently, Justice Aisha Malik became the first woman Supreme Court Judge of Pakistan. Dear colleagues, Islam became popular. Some other notable names who have emerged out of Pakistan in the last few years does not believe in Samina Beg. She is the first Pakistani woman to climb Everest and 7 summits. Namira Salim, no one is first Pakistani astronaut, first Pakistani to have reached both the North Pole in April 2007 and the South Pole in January 2008. Before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Dr. Nargis Fawadwala, astrophysicist known for her role in the first observation of gravitational waves, and also the brave Prime Officer hold a significant position in a Muslim society. I would also like to mention here many renowned philanthropists and devoted her life to serve. They are the center of a Muslim household. Dear colleagues, in today's time and age, it is significant that we all must do our bit any society which and encourage more women to grow and feel empowered. As a higher in this regard, education is the most effective medium to empower women. Economic growth, Islam gives great importance towards attaining knowledge irrespective of gender discrimination. It is important to remember that Iqra, meaning read, rather than was the first word of the Holy Quran, revealed to the Holy Prophet Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and wish to highlight the role of women as our beloved Holy Prophet Hazrat Muhammad, may peace be upon him, said, acquisition of knowledge is binding on all Muslims, male and female. Pakistan is a country in which women have played. Education equips individuals with tools to not only distinguish between what is right and wrong, but also enables them to be financially independent. As women become educated, they also gain financial independence and hence empowered to take their own decisions independently. Ladies and gentlemen, women can play a frontline role in the pursuit of peace, prosperity, stability, and development of the country if given the opportunity. As a farmer, for this purpose, prioritizing engagement with women at the grassroots level is a must. Pakistan has produced exemplary women in order for them to productively contribute to a country's development, their capacity building and ensuring their rights. The mother of our nation, the Honorable. It is essential that we must remove misconceptions regarding women's role in the society. We must play our role to help empower them instead of cutting their wings and repressing them. I would like to conclude my speech with the wise words by the founder of our nation, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, who firmly believed in gender equality and empowerment of women. As he said, and I quote, "No nation can rise to the height of glory unless your women are side by side with you. We are victims of evil customs. It is a crime against humanity that our women are shut up within the four walls of the houses as prisoners. There is no sanction anywhere for the deplorable condition in which our women have to live." Unquote. I thank you all and wish the organizers the best of success in the work they are doing with the success of today's seminar. I'm confident we will see some very positive developments coming out. Thank you. Known all over the world for her human rights advocacy.
Thank you very much, Senator Sehar Kamran, for your very insightful presentation that you mentioned some exemplary women of Pakistan that internationally known, such as Honorable Benazir Bhutto, Malala Yousafzai, as well as other women leaders of Pakistan, and we are very proud of them. So thank you very much for that. Hopefully later we can continue the discussion in the Q&A session. Okay, since we are running the time, I will call the fourth speaker, Professor Dr. Alamin from she will represent the women leader from Muhammadiyah of Indonesia. So please, Professor Dr. Alimatul Kiptia, you also have like 7 until 10 minutes to present your presentation. The floor is yours. I would also like to mention here
Thank you, Ibu Riri. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much. I'm so honored to be here as part of the presenter in this great event. And first of all, the Honorable Speaker, Ambassador of Pakistan to Indonesia, Mr. Muhammad Hassan, and all speakers and distinguished guests from all over the world, particularly from Indonesia, Malaysia, Tunisia, and Pakistan, and the committee in FIT, including also from Muhammadiyah and Nahdlatul Ulama members, and all participants here. Okay, today I'm going to present the experience from Anesia, one of the biggest Muslimah organization in Indonesia, and the title is the strategic role of Muslimah in strengthening and expanding the Islamic practices of Islam as Rahmatan Alamin. Okay. Okay, maybe just skip our CV. There are three things that I'm going to present. Please skip. Okay, first of all, problems faced by Indonesian women. And the second one, Islam is Rahmatan Alamin, including for women. And the third one is Muslimah effort and achievement in overcoming the Islamic practices on gender issues. Okay, now for the problem, this is number that, for example, okay, I think this is the example of the problem in at university. For example, for male professor, that's still 4 times for the number of male professor than a female professor. So there is a problem in academic level that less number for women professor. Next, and this is the leadership, the leader in the higher education as well. So if you look at the data, it's around 15 to 20% the female leader at higher education. Next. And the other problem is violence against women. Yeah, there are still very high level the percentage of the violence against women. If we look at the number, for example, last year the increasing number around 920%, yeah, relating to the online gender-based violence. Next, this is the sexual violence cases are the highest in the public domain. And if we look at the data, rates is also very significant number, yeah, about the cases. Next. And this is blaming the victim and gender stereotype. This research is from Infit, yeah, which is I just want to highlight the one that I put at the red one, which is there is blaming the victim because women are if you look at that one, sorry, the is very tiny. That rape is because of how the women wear their clothes. This is around 70%. They blame to the victim because of the rape, for example. This is the number that I think is very significant, that our society is still blaming the victim when sexual violence happens. Next. And the problematic role of women in domestic, public, and in ritual. As we know, in domestic level, there is excessive burden. Female is believed to be in charge of care and household chores, and also undervalued because it's the economic. Sometimes the powerful of money, the measure is always money. So sometimes the role of domestic women is undervalued. And also in public, there is negative labeling. A source of fitnah, for example, is still happening. And also doubtful that about her ability to be a leader. And little summary because it's not a breadwinner. In ritual, religious figures are still identical with men. And also there is reason and blame if women lead ritual event. Next, including also from. So this is the whole problem. But how Islam deal with this problem? Okay, we believe that Islam is Rahmatan Alamin, including for women. Next, so particularly there are 3 root causes of gender inequality, which is patriarchal culture, misogynic religious interpretation, and gender biased policies that lead to the gender inequality, such as negative stereotypes, subordination, marginalization, multiple burden, and violence. Next. Okay, Islam Rahmatan Alamin, as presented by other speaker previously, that we believe Islam is Rahmatan Alamin. One hadith said that someday the sahabat of the Prophet Muhammad asked to the Prophet that the Prophet Muhammad, please pray for the evil of the musyrikin, and then he replied that I was not sent to be a curse, but I was sent only to be a mercy. And also the Umar bin Khattab, he mentioned that at first we did not consider women is respectful and important. But when Islam came and God mentioned them, we just realized that women also have autonomous right, which we cannot longer intervene. Next. Okay, this is the principle of gender equality in Islam, yeah, which is that all human beings are as servant to God, not servant to other human creature, and also about the holy Fatimil art, and the same men and women was created from the same essence, and also they have the same quality of temptation, and men and women also has responsible what they have done in the world. Next. Okay, this is the example of contentious gender issues in Islam. For example, about women participation in public, private, and political life, and also violence against women, status of women property right, and right of custody to children, and the right to bodily integrity. Okay, I will quick here go. This is just the example, and then please next. Yeah, next. Yeah, this is the equal women participation in private, public, and political life, which is based on the Bayani and also Burhani that proves that women have equal right in the private, public, and political life. This is that we can also consider to material for our discussion. Next. And okay, women be good and effective leader. There are many verses are also example, and also there are experience that women also to be a good and effective leader. Next. Violence against women is prohibited in Islam. Of course, we already know that there are Islam Rahmatan Alamin is not tolerant women that are violence. Yeah. Next, sexual violence is prohibited in Islam. Okay, go. Next, equal status of women property right. Because there are number of economic resources that we can discuss about the equal rights of women in property is next. Okay, and equal right on inheritance. Yeah. If we use the progressive interpretation, men and women have equal right for inheritance. Next, for the custody of children as well. Yeah. So how that men and women and father and mother have the same responsibility to taking care of the children. Next. And this is also the nasab, yeah, bilateral kinship is also known in the Islamic teaching. Next, and women can be wali, guardian as well, as we know that from the fiqh, that some scholars also allow women to be wali. Next, okay, the right of bodily integrity. This is the discussion about the hijab. Next, this debate about the hijab, there are many interpretation. At least there are 3 interpretation of the hijab. Next, okay, now next, we believe Islam is Rahmatan Alamin. Hello. One hadith said that
please next
someday. Okay, now just go. I'm going to the part because it's time. Pray for the evil.
Yeah, but Alim, you still have like 3 minutes.
Okay, now I'm going to talk about the achievement. Please go ahead. And also next. Okay, so the Muslimah effort and achievement and in overcoming the Islamic practice on gender issue based on the Aisyah experience. Okay, what we have done so far from Aisyah. Please next. Strengthening an egalitarian culture and moderate progressive interpretation of religion. From our discussion before that there are many issues, and then we strengthening the moderate and progressive interpretation, and also the second one recognizing the diversity of women's experience, and the third one we using silent revolution and mastering Bayani, Burhani, and Irfani on women issues, and formal and informal approaches. This is the one that Aisyah usually done in their da'wah. Okay, so recognizing the diversity of women experience, we can compare. If we look at the rainbow compared to look at the zebra cross, I think we will feel happy if we look at the rainbow compared to looking for zebra cross. So how the diversity, which is like rainbow, yeah. So it it will recognize many experiences from human. Next. And this is the one that I thought that we have to master it, Bayani, Burhani, and Irfani. Bayani is relating to the text, comprehensive reading, usually we use hermeneutic, and also understanding the asbabul nuzul, asbabul wurud, using historical approach, and Burhani, which talking about the data, diversity of human experience, and science and research, and the last one is Irfani, considering spiritual wisdom and also humanity. This approach also used by Muhammadiyah Aisyah in their fatwa. And also we understand the dialogue between text and context. Yeah, there is Al-Qur'an hadith and there is interpretation, and we have dialogue. Yeah, we can access directly to the text, but also we consider the past scholars, how they understand the religious text. So we can dialogue between text and context. Next. And this is learning from the training that Aisyah done in several provinces. This is something that very controversy. We have pre and post test. I only pick one controversy issue, which is relating to women imam for adult men. And surprisingly, from our training in Aisyah, that for the pre-test, for example, in Lampung, nobody chose that women can be a leader of imam for adult men. But in post-test, we got 42%. In Maluku as well, increased to 26%. In East Java, from 10% to 36%. And in Kalimantan Selatan, for example, it's very tiny, around 3%, but increased into 9%. So this is just the example that what we have done to promote egalitarian and moderate and progressive interpretation, which is if we try to dakwah intensively and the result is there. This is we call madrasah perempuan berkemajuan, MPB. This is part of the main program in LPPA. LPPA is Lembaga Penelitian dan Pengembangan Aisyah, which is like a research development in Aisyah organization. And we have several programs, including in terms of dakwah for promoting moderate and progressive interpretation. I think that's all. My presentation is already done for 7 and 8 minutes in my time. So thank you very much, Mbak Riri, and we will have a great discussion later.
Thank you.
What we have done so far.
Thank you very much, Professor Alamin, for a very enlightening presentation about the role of Aisyah with Muhammadiyah. I really like the approaches that have been used. Using like Bayani, Burhani, and Irfani. I think it's very interesting to be discussed later in the Q&A session. Well, we will proceed to the last speaker that will be delivered by our sister Fatima Azafar Sheikh Hussein PhD. She is from the International Islamic University of Malaysia.
Okay, so
please, Sister Fatima, it's now your turn. You have like 7 until 10 minutes, just as other speakers. Time is yours.
Terima kasih Mbak Riri. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. To the organizers, thank you very much. I'm very honored to be here. His Excellency Dr. Muhammad Hassan, Ambassador of Pakistan to Indonesia, esteemed colleagues, speakers. I feel very humbled to be here after listening to all the speakers' presentation. We've seen a lot of different diverse takes on the issues and roles of women in addressing Rahmatan Alamin, or delivering and advancing the agenda of Rahmatan Alamin. My presentation, I think, will be narrowing it down and showing some examples of what my team and I have done, or our movement has done in one aspect in order to address issues of women and gender. I would like to request the organizers to present my slides, please.
And we have dialogue. We can access directly to the text, but also we consider the past.
I think Professor Dr. Alimatul has done a really great job just now presenting all of the details and data of the issues relating to the context of Indonesia. And I think I saw a lot of similarities as well in Malaysia. Next slide, please. So I think everybody knows that Malaysia is a heterogeneous society, and like many societies today, we are made of multi-ethnic groups, multi-religious groups, and also people coming from different socio-economic levels and education level. And because of the nature of the development or progress in the world, Malaysia now has also groups or different divides between the rural and urban. And I think this may be similar as well to Indonesia, to Pakistan, to Tunisia. So we're not just looking at people of diverse religion, diverse ethnicities, but also those socio-economic diversity of people that are coming together as a nation. So when we're talking about Rahmatan and Alamin and addressing social issues, we have to consider the differences and the intersectionalities within our population and how we can address these issues. Next, please. So we know that there are different trends that are affecting women issues, in particular in Malaysia, similar to what Dr. Alimatul was sharing just now. When we saw the gender gap report from 2021, Malaysia was ranked quite low, actually at 112 in 156. And there were several issues, particularly relating to politics and leadership for women. But Malaysia ranked very highly in health and education, but not so in economics and similar issues relating to care work, relating to undervaluing of care work. But I want to highlight something. Sometimes we see these numbers, right? We see the data in terms of progress, but there are underlying issues, just like when we talk about issues of patriarchy, issues of misogynistic interpretations of the text and things like that. We have to also understand how these impact the different markers and categories that are being measured. So I want to give an example, and I want to share some of the work that we've done and one of the issues that we've looked at, and I have yet to see a lot of work on this in Indonesia, in Pakistan, in Tunisia. But if there are works about this issue and there are movements to address this issue, please do contact me after, and I'm really interested to find out. Next, please. So the issue that I want to highlight is the issue of period poverty. So, or we call it menstrual poverty. So period poverty is actually a context or a situation when people cannot manage their menstruation in a safe and healthy way, right? But it is a colloquial term that we use, period poverty. And we want to address this issue to talk about how we can address period poverty and see the implications of period poverty in all the different aspects just now. Just to give a brief idea about what period poverty is. So as I said just now, when somebody or when a menstruating person cannot manage their menstruation, we call it period poverty. So what are the things that we need to look at when we talk about menstrual health? Knowledge, meaning understanding of what menstruation is, what period is, understanding about menstrual cycle, and then they also need materials, right? Period products like sanitary pads or menstrual cups or reusable, disposable sanitary pads. And then we also have facilities having toilets, having clean water, disposal management, and then health services. If something is wrong with them, or if they're in pain, do they know where to go, who to get help from, right? And having these resources available to them. And then also having positive, respectful environment that is free from stigma and psychological distress. So meaning there's no taboos, or there's very little taboo around the society around issues relating to period. Just like as I'm mentioning about period and menstruation here, some of us may understand what I'm referring to when we're talking about stigma and how society views menstruation and how this affects women's life. And then we talk also about inclusivity, the ability for women and girls to manage our menstruation with dignity, that we're not discriminated because we have menstruation, that we're not put into a different place, we're not restricted from getting education, or we're not being elected to be leaders because we are considered as emotional, for example, because we have menstruation. So inclusivity is also important. I would like to give a picture of period poverty and how we can see different cases and how diverse the issue can be. In very severe cases, for example, in really remote areas, we find that everything is missing, right? Girls and women may be severely affected in all areas. They might not have a clear understanding of what menstruation is, menstrual cycle is. They don't have access to clean water, or they don't have access to toilets, and then they also don't have access to the products, meaning that they might be in a condition of poverty, with economic poverty, where they don't have access to either a disposable sanitary pad or reusable sanitary pad, any product that's safe and healthy and allows them to go out to go to school. And because of that, a lot of young girls are taken out of school because the parents have to make the difficult choice to choose whether to send the girls to school or to and pay for the sanitary pads, or to keep them at home, right? And because of the lack of understanding and knowledge about menstruation across the generation as well, sometimes girls are married off early. Then we have issues of child marriage as well in this case that restrict the growth of women and children, and also may have or can cause harm in terms of their health and their safety. And then we also have different issues relating to health and safety. We know that some of the girls who are in very rural and remote areas don't have anything to manage themselves, so they also feel that, for example, the blood or the menstrual blood is dirty and it's shameful. So there's a lot of also issues relating to mental health. That's an example in rural, remote areas. Okay, we go to like urban areas, right? We have a lot of developing cities, and there's a lot of development in the city to ensure that there is facilities. For example, we have clean water in the city. Life is much better in the city. Girls go to school, high rates of education, but there are other issues that restrict girls and women's ability to manage their menstruation. So, for example, we know that among the urban poor, which is a rising number, and we see this with development as well, and further impacted by the pandemic, right? So, because of the pandemic, there's a lot more people who have lost their jobs, who have lost their source of income. So, in the last 2 years, we've seen a rising case of those who can no longer afford to buy sanitary pads even. So this means that girls and women may be restricted from going to school or from going to work. So even though they have access to facilities and education, they might not still have access to the sanitary pad. But the underlying issue that exists is also the issue of taboo and stigma around menstruation, right? So there's a lot of misunderstanding about what menstruation is. What is it? Is it something that's supposed to be concealed, or is it something that's supposed to be embarrassing? Because we know that women and girls make up almost half of the population of the world, right? In our different countries, they make up a slightly different number, but it will almost always be half of the population. And women and girls experience menstruation for about 30 or so years of our lives, 30 to 40 years of our lives, and it's not something we can stop generally, right? Something that happens on a monthly basis. So this is something that affects women's lives. But largely, the issue of menstruation is not something we discuss, and it's not something that we talk about because of taboo. And this taboo is sometimes embedded within our culture and within our social groups as well. So the context is important, and because we conceal the issue, then we don't get to help the people who need help, and we don't get to address the issue at policy level. We can see different cases and how diverse the issue can be. So what we've done in the last 2 years since 2019 is we are under Peduli Merah. Peduli Merah means to care about the color red. It's just symbolic in menstruation. So what we've done is we want to raise awareness. Prior to 2019, we barely see any reports of issues relating to period poverty. So given the explanation that I've given you about what period poverty is, I think you can realize how big the problem is everywhere, not just in Malaysia, not just in developed countries where they have to address period poverty, like Scotland, New Zealand, where they've given out free sanitary pads, right? And even in a lot of different countries, we can understand that period poverty is a real issue that affects a lot more women and girls than we care to realize. So what we started off doing is raising awareness, and that was a big part of the first year of our work, right? To raise awareness, we conducted different talks outside. We also did, and then we went into the pandemic, so we had to move the talks to online platforms. And interestingly, we saw that the conversations were taken up mostly by youth groups and particularly youth groups including Muslims. So they're not particularly Islamic groups, but Muslim women and Muslim men who care about the issue of women and realizing how important the ability to manage our menstruation is, because it is a basic human right. And the collaboration between the different units within our societies, I think one of the key important things for us to do in addressing issues relating to women and in highlighting Rahmatan and Alamin, right? We have to work together. We cannot just work in our own areas. As an academic, I can stay in my office, right, write a journal article or go to a conference, but it's hard for us to see change in our society if we don't work with others. So we managed to work with different NGOs, and we managed to set up a platform, which is our Peduli Merah. And from there, we worked with media, and we saw a spike in reporting about period poverty, and that really created a massive boom in terms of interest from the society about the work that we're doing, about the issue of period poverty itself. So I'm sharing some of the news articles. So from having almost zero reports on period poverty, we saw a spike from 2020, and then with the pandemic, we saw even more. And we managed to engage with Maulid, or our Islamic religious body in Malaysia, which is under the government, who gives out like zakat and baitul mal. And we managed to talk to the former minister of religious affairs, who helped us also to address the issue. So you can see, like, the picture's not very clear, but the second picture is him. That's not just something that that addresses also the issue of male participation and support in addressing issues of menstruation. So his role as a leader, showing that he cares and showing that it's not something for us to be ashamed of. We have to show that we care about our women and that this is a basic right for us to address. So
a minute lagi, sister. 2 more minutes.
Thank you so much, Wirid. Okay, I'm just finishing up. So we kept on going with our awareness and working alongside a lot of different bodies and different groups to address the issue of period poverty in Malaysia. And we saw an amazing change in the kinds of things that were happening on the ground, but we had not heard yet what was happening at the policy level in terms of policy change. But then in 2021, late 2021, next slide please. Finally, the government released in budget for 2022 that 130,000 teenage girls were going to receive free monthly personal hygiene kits. So they had taken, or the government now takes it seriously and realizes the implications of women and girls not being able to manage menstruation. So we saw a very impactful situation. The other one, recently Malaysia, like some of the other Southeast Asian countries, were affected by floods, right, in December in 2021. And for the first time, most of the NGO realized the importance of menstruation for those who were relocated. So most of the NGOs and the relocation centers called out for donation of sanitary pads and disposable panties for women and girls who are in reallocation centers. So that was a big, I suppose, improvement and change. And I want to highlight that sometimes we think about big issues, right, but we don't realize the issues that affect the day-to-day lives of women and girls. And this has a real impact. And as women, we know how important it is for us to be able to manage our menstruation in a safe and healthy and dignified way. And these are issues that are pertinent for us to address in order to highlight, because it affects the education of girls, it affects the dignity of women, it affects the ability for women to participate in social and and political spaces. So I hope that the example that I've given today is something that can give us a different view of Rahmatan lil Alamin. You know, maybe it's a small example, very specific to this particular issue, but I think it's an example of how we can deliver Rahmatan lil Alamin. Inshallah, may Allah accept all our good. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sister Fatima. I would agree with you that we also have to address the women's problem, day-to-day problem of women and girls that we are facing. And one of the problems that's still until now is about, we call it poverty period. I just read this term basically. Usually in Indonesia we call it like menstrual taboo, which that during the menstruation actually kind of isolation as well as seclusion in terms of health, education, and other social life. Thank you very much for reminding us about this very, very important issue, especially about the right of reproductive health for women and how actually Islam as the blessing first also mainstream this principle of the protection of women. Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, after all the speakers participation in support in addressing issues of menstruation, so his role as a leader, showing that he cares and showing that it's not something for us to be ashamed of. We have to show that we care about our women and that this is a basic right for us to address. So, and also Tunisia as well as Malaysia, I believe that you have like some questions for the speakers. I see some questions already in the chat, in the Q&A features, and I will read it one by one. And I'm sorry that because of the time constraint, I don't give you specific time to open your mic to drop your question. So I will just read it.
Finally, the government released in budget for 2022 that 130,000 teenage girls are going to receive free monthly personal hygiene kits. So
Mushaf Muqaddas to Professor Dr. Munjia. This is I will read it in Bahasa, so please Ginanjar please translate into Arabic to Professor Munjia. But actually there are some Arabic translation already. So pertanyaannya adalah untuk Profesor Munjia dari Zaytuna Indonesia, kenapa milisi ISIS, Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, di Suriah banyak berasal dari ISIS dan tidak sedikit dari kalangan perempuan. Bahkan salah satu faksi di ISIS yaitu Al-Hazimi adalah faksi yang paling radikal dan mereka berasal dari Indonesia. Jadi Mas Ginanjar, apakah bisa diulangi di translation ke bahasa Arab sehingga Profesor Munjia bisa langsung meresponnya? Boleh seperti itu?
How important it is for us to be able to manage our menstruation in a safe and healthy and dignified way.
Okay.
And these are
sorry,
issues that are
mungkin karena agak technical saya
ممكن أجيب؟
highlight because it affects the education
So Professor Munjia,
أقدم جواب؟
Okay, please you can answer this question first.
So I hope that
شكرا مصحف مقدس. أنت ذكرت أن الكثير من التونسيين ذهبوا إلى القتال في سوريا. أولا
Thank you very much.
ذهبوا إلى سوريا والعراق. أنت استمعت إلى السؤال أريد أن أجيب. أولا أنت لما تقول كثير هذا فيه تجني على التونسيين. صحيح هناك مثلهم مثل غيرهم الذين ذهبوا إلى القتال في سوريا وفي العراق من العالم كله، من لندن، من أمريكا، من فرنسا، من سائر الدول العربية، وهي كانت موجة انتشر فيها التطرف العنيف. والتطرف العنيف لعدة أسباب، منها أسباب الفقر، منها أسباب الجهل، منها أسباب سد منافذ الإسلام إلى غير ذلك. ولذا التهمة لا تكون فقط للذين ذهبوا من تونس. أما قول هناك عدة منظمات إرهابية في تونس، هذا غير صحيح. ليس هناك منظمات إرهابية في تونس، هناك فكر متطرف. هذا الفكر موجود كما هو موجود في ماليزيا، في إندونيسيا، في باكستان، في أفغانستان، في العالم كله. ولكن جامعة الزيتونة في هذا المجال واقفة بالمرصاد، تقاوم هذا التطرف بالفكر وبالسلوك. كذلك المرأة في تونس لها دور كبير جدا في مقاومة هذا التطرف، لأننا لاحظنا أن الفقر بين النساء هو الذي قد يجر أبنائهم إلى التطرف العنيف، وقد يجرهم هم إلى التطرف العنيف. كما كذلك جهلهم بتعاليم الإسلام السمحة وبالرحمة وبالتعايش وبالحرية الدينية وغير ذلك من مبادئ الإسلام التي يتعايش فيها. مثلا نحن في تونس لنا منظمة أنداد العالم العربي. هذه المنظمة تقدم قروض للنساء الفقيرات وتخرجهن من الفقر، فيقومن بمشاريع. هذه المشاريع توفر لهن العيش ولأطفالهن ونسائهن. كذلك تقوم بحصص توعوية. أنا كأستاذة في هذا المجال على الميدان قابلت أكثر من 10,000 امرأة في هذه المنظمة ووعيناهن ضد التطرف وكيف يحمين بناتهن وأبنائهن من هذا العنف. لأن القضية لابد أن تكون استقلالية مادية متنوع وتوعية متواصلة وعمل ميداني. وهنا أشكر المتدخلات التي تحدثن عن العمل الواقعي. نحن لابد أن نجمع بين المقالات والكتب والندوات العلمية وبين العمل الميداني. فلنا حلقات ولنا لقاءات مع النساء منذ 2011 إلى حد اليوم، إلى حد البارحة. أنا الآن سأكمل معكم اللقاءات وسأتصل بمجموعة، سأذهب إلى مجموعة من النساء لأدربهن على الحوار وسط العائلة وعلى القيادية كيف
tayang iki sing belum iki berarti belum itu sing diedit iki
المجتمع الكثير. هناك عمل متواصل ولست الوحيدة التي أقوم بها. فهناك عدد كبير من النساء التونسيين ومن الرجال التونسيين الذين يسيرون على نهج أهل السنة والجماعة التي تقوم على الاعتدال. إذا ابني سؤالي هذا شكرا على السؤال وشكرا على العناية. هناك تطرف عنيف ولكن ليس هذه وليست هناك منظمات فنحن كل يقوم بدور التوعية العلمية، التوعية الفكرية، التعليم الديني المتطور. وجامعة الزيتونة تعلمون أن هذه أول جامعة في العالم وهي قائمة ولكم أبناء عندنا طلبة تونسيين هم ينقلونه إلى عمران تونس، ينقلون مناهج التعليم في جامعة الزيتونة. من أهمها مقارنة من أهمها التفسير. وهنا قبل أن أقول الجواب أريد أن أقول يفضل أن يخرج هذا الملتقى الرائع بفكرة هي أن تجتمع النساء المختصة في الحقل الديني ويفسرنا الآيات والأحاديث التي فسرها الرجال ضد حقوق المرأة والتفسير تمييزي. فلا بد أن تأخذ المرأة تأخذ العلم الديني وتنشر هذا العلم، لأن حق المرأة في الدين، حقها في التعليم، حقها في السياسة، حقها في الاقتصاد، حقها في كل مجال الحياة مدفوع بالإسلام. ولكن مع الأسف بعض المفسرين وبعض الفقهاء حجبوا هذا الحق. والذي يؤلمني أن اليوم كذلك هناك مجموعة تريد أن تخاطب المرأة خطاب التمييز وخطاب الكراهية وخطاب الإصلاح من الفضاء العام. شكرا لكم. وبالحرية الدينية وغير ذلك من مبادئ الإسلام التي يتعايش.
Thank you very much for very comprehensive answer. I really like the explanation of Professor Munzia in dealing with the question. And the next question, let me proceed to the next question from Wahyono Saputra. His question is directed to Ibu Anggia. First is there a special economic program from Fatayat NU Autonomous Body related to women empowerment and economic improvement in the new normal? New normal mean this time after the pandemic, sorry. And the second is how does Fatayat NU its role and strategy to work and synergy with the village and also rural government. Please, Ibu Anggia, your time to respond the question from Wahyono Saputra.
بين المقالب والكتب والندوات العلمية وبين العمل الميداني، فلنا علاقات ولنا لقاءات مع النساء منذ أحداث لحد اليوم إلى مجموعة من النساء لأدربهن على الحوار وسط العائلة وعلى القيادية كيف تكون المرأة قائدة.
Ya, pada dasarnya sebetulnya kami yang jauh dari kota besar Jakarta, dari pusat, dari PBNU ini hanya yang
ولست الوحيدة التي أقوم بها، فهناك عدد من النساء التونسيين ومن الرجال التونسيين الذين يسيرون على نهج أهل السنة والجماعة التي تقوم على الاعتدال. إذا ابني سؤالك هذا شكرا على السؤال وشكرا على البداية. لا نعتقد أن هناك ناس متطرفون ولكن ليس هذه ليست موجة كبيرة وليست هناك
Mbok tutup apa? Wah, iki. Aduh, bar iki live ya. Aku mau nanti balik. Ah, iki bubar jalan iki Mas.
Islam plays key role.
Mau tekan di boy. Sirong. Mau sirong.
So thank you very much for that. Hopefully later we can continue discussion.
Aku malah buka PCN streaming.
Since we are
ya oke, kamu mau buka video ngecek kok. Jadi enggak ini lagi.
Will represent the women leader from Muhammadiyah of Indonesia. So please, Professor Dr. Alamin, you will also have like 7 to 10 minutes to present your presentation. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Ibu Wirid. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much. I'm so honored to be here as part of the presenter in this great event. And first of all, Honorable Speaker, Ambassador of Pakistan to Indonesia, Mr. Muhammad Hassan, and all speakers and distinguished guests from all over the world, particularly from Indonesia, Malaysia, Tunisia, and Pakistan. And the committee in FIT, including also from Muhammadiyah and Nahdlatul Ulama, and all participants here. Okay, today I'm going to present the experience from Malaysia, one of the biggest Muslimah organization in Indonesia, and the title is the strategic role of Muslimah in strengthening and expanding the Islamic practices of Islam as Rahmatan lil Alamin. Okay, we just skip our CV. There are three things that I'm going to present. Please skip. Okay, first of all, problems faced by Indonesian women, and the second one, Islam is Rahmatan lil Alamin, including for women, and the third one is Muslimah effort and achievement in overcoming the Islamic practices on gender issues. Okay, now for the problem, this is the number that, for example, okay, I think this is the example of the problem in at university. For example, for male professor, that's still 4 times for the number of male professors than a female professor. So there is a problem at academic level that less number for women professor. Next, and this is the leader in the higher education as well. So if we look at the data, it's around 15 to 20% the female leader at higher education. This is just next, and the other problem is violence against women. And then there are still very high level the percentage of the violence against women. If we look at the number, for example, last year, the increasing number around 920%, relating to the online gender-based violence. Next, this is the sexual violence cases are the highest in the public domain. And if we look at the data, rapes is also very significant number, about the case. Very useful. Next, I think that this is blaming the victim and gender stereotype. This research is from Infit, which is I just want to highlight the one that I put the red one, which is there is blaming the victim because women are. If you look at that one, sorry, it's very tiny. Rape is because of how the women wear their clothes. This is around 70%. They blame to the victim because of the rape, for example. This is the number that I think is very significant, that our society is still blaming the victim when sexual violence happens. Next. And the problematic role of women in domestic, public, and in ritual. As we know, in domestic level, there is excessive burden. Female is believed to be in charge of care and household chores, and also undervalued because it's the economic. Sometimes the powerful of money, the measure is always money. So sometimes the role of domestic women is undervalued. And also in public, there is negative labeling. A source of fitnah, for example, is still happening. And also doubtful that about her ability to be a leader. And little summary because it's not a breadwinner. In ritual, religious figures are still identical as men, and also there is question and blame if women lead ritual event. Next. So this is the whole problem. But how Islam deal with this problem? We believe that Islam is Rahmatan lil Alamin, including strong women. Next. So particularly there are 3 root causes of gender inequality, which is patriarchal culture, misogynic religious interpretation, and gender-biased policies that lead to the gender inequality, such as negative stereotypes, subordination, marginalization, multiple burden, and violence. Next. Okay, Islam Rahmatan Alamin, as presented by other speaker previously, that we believe Islam is Rahmatan Alamin. One hadith said that someday the Sahabat of the Prophet Muhammad asked to the Prophet that the Prophet Muhammad, please pray for the evil of the Mushrikin, and then he replied that I was not sent to be a curse, but I was sent only to be a marriage. And also the Umar bin Khattab, he mentioned that at first we did not consider women is respectful and important, but when Islam came and God mentioned them, we just realized that women also have autonomous rights which we cannot longer intervene. Next, okay, this is the principle of gender equality in Islam, which is that all human beings are as servant to God, not servant to other human creatures, and also about the Khalifah to fill out, and the same men and women was created from the same essence, and also they have the same quality of temptation, and men and women also has responsible what they have done in the world. Next. Okay, this is the example of contentious gender issues in Islam. For example, about women participation in public, private, and political life, and also violence against women, status of women property rights, and right of custody to children, and the right to bodily integrity. Okay, I will quick here go. This is just the example, and then please next. Next. This is the equal women participation in private, public, and political life, which is based on the Bayani and also Burhani that proves that women have equal right in the private, public, and political life. This is that we can also consider to material for our discussion. Next. And okay, women be good and effective leader. There are many verses are also example, and also there are experience that women also to be a good and effective leader. Next. Violence against women is prohibited in Islam. Of course, we already know that there are Islam Rahmatan lil Alamin is not tolerant. Women get violence here. Next, sexual violence is prohibited in Islam. Okay, go. Next, equal status of women's property right. There are a number of resources that we can discuss about that equal rights of women in property. Next. Okay, and equal rights on inheritance. If we use the progressive interpretation, men and women have equal right for inheritance. Next, for the custody of children as well. So how that men and women, father and mother, have the same responsibility to taking care of the children. Next, and this is also the nasab, bilateral kinship is also known in the Islamic teaching. Next, and women can be wali, guardian as well, as we know that from the fiqh that some scholars also allow women to be a wali. Next. Okay, the right of bodily integrity. This is the discussion about the hijab. Next, this debate about the hijab. There are many interpretations. At least there are 3 interpretations of the hijab. Next. But from females. Okay, now according to the data from the national civil servants in Indonesia, okay, now just go. I'm going to the sempat because it's time.
But Alim, you still have like 3 minutes.
Okay, now I'm going to talk about the achievements. Please go ahead. Next is okay. So the Muslimah effort and achievement and in overcoming the Islamic practice on gender issue based on the Aisyah experience. Okay, what we are going, what we have done so far from Aisyah. Please next. Strengthening an egalitarian culture and moderate progressive interpretation of religion. from our discussion before that there are many issues, and then we strengthening the moderate and progressive interpretation, and also the second one recognizing the diversity of women's experience, and the third one we using silent revolution and mastering Bayani, Burhani, and Irfani on women issues, and formal and informal approaches. This is the one that Aisyah usually done in their da'wah. Next, okay, so recognizing the diversity of women experience, we can compare. If we look at the rainbow compared to look at the zebra cross, I think we will feel happy if we look at the rainbow compared to looking for zebra cross. So how the diversity, which is like rainbow, yeah. So it will recognize many experiences from women. Next. And this is the one that I thought that we have to mastering Bayani, Burhani, and Irfani. Bayani is relating to the text comprehensive reading. Usually we use hermeneutic, and also understanding the asbabul nuzul, asbabul wurud, using historical approach. And Burhani, which talking about the data, diversity of human experience, and science and research. And the last one is Irfani, considering spiritual wisdom and also humanity. This approach also used by Muhammadiyah Aisyah in their fatwa. And also we understand the dialogue between text and polytext. Yeah, there is Al-Qur'an hadith and there is interpretation, and we have dialogue. Yeah, we can access directly to the text, but also we consider the past scholars, how they understand the religious text. So we can dialogue between text and context. Next. And this is learning from the training that Aisyah done in several provinces. This is something that very controversial. We have pre and post test. I only pick one controversy issue, which is relating to women imam for adult men. And surprisingly, from our training in Aisyah, that for the pre-test, for example, in Lampung, nobody choose that women can be a leader of imam for adult men. But in post-test, we got 42%. In Maluku as well, increased to 26%. In East Java, from 10% to 36%. And in Kalimantan Selatan, for example, it's very tiny, around 3%, but increased into 9%. So this is just the example, but what we have done to promote egalitarian and moderate and progressive interpretation, which is if we try to dakwah intensively, and the result is there. Yeah, this is we call madrasah perempuan berkemajuan, MPB. This is part of the main program in LPPA. LPPA is Lembaga Penelitian dan Pengembangan Aisyah, which is like a research development in Aisyah organization, and we have several programs including in terms of dakwah for promoting moderate and progressive interpretation. I think that's all. My presentation is already done for 7 and 8 minutes in my time. So thank you very much, Mbak Riri, and we will have a great discussion later. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Alim, for a very enlightening presentation about the role of Aisyah within Muhammadiyah. I really like the approaches that have been used, using like Bayani, Burhani, and Irfani. I think it's very interesting to be discussed later in the Q&A session. Well, we will proceed to the last speaker that will be delivered by our sister Fatima Al-Zahra binti Sheikh Hussein PhD. She is from the International Islamic University of Malaysia.
Let me talk about
Pakistan,
Indonesia, and Malaysia.
Now your turn.
Here in
Have like
Asia,
7
basically,
until
we
10
inherited
minutes
cultures
as
which were
others.
basically from the Hindu culture.
Terima kasih Mbak Riri. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. To the organizers, thank you very much. I'm very honored to be here. His Excellency Dr. Muhammad Hassan, Ambassador of Pakistan to Indonesia, esteemed colleagues, speakers. I feel very humbled to be here after listening to all the speakers' presentation. We've seen a lot of different diverse take on the issues and roles of women in addressing Rahmatan and Alamin, or delivering and advancing the agenda of Rahmatan and Alamin. My presentation, I think, will be narrowing it down and showing some examples or example of what my team and I have done, or our movement have done in one aspect in order to address issues of women and gender. I would like to request the organizers to present my slides, please. Okay, next please. I think Professor Dr. Alimatul has done a really great job just now presenting all of the details and data of the issues relating to the context of Indonesia, and I think I saw a lot of similarities as well in Malaysia. Next slide please. So I think everybody knows that Malaysia is a heterogeneous society, and like many societies today, we are made of multi-ethnic groups, multi-religious groups, and also people coming from different socio-economic levels and education level. And because of the nature of the development or progress in the world, Malaysia now has also groups or different divides between the rural and urban. And I think this may be similar as well to Indonesia, to Pakistan, to Tunisia. So we're not just looking at people of diverse religion, diverse ethnicities, but also the socio-economic diversity of people that are coming together as a nation. So when we're talking about Rahmatan lil Alamin and addressing social issues, we have to consider the differences and the intersectionalities within our population and how we can address these issues. Next please. So we know that there are different trends that are affecting women issues, in particular in Malaysia, similar to what Dr. Alimatul was sharing just now. When we saw the gender gap report from 2021, Malaysia was ranked quite low, actually at 112 in 156. And there were several issues, particularly relating to politics and leadership for women. But Malaysia ranked very highly in health and education, but not so in economics and similar issues relating to care work, relating to undervaluing of care work. But I want to highlight something. Sometimes we see these numbers, right? We see the data in terms of progress, but there are underlying issues, just like when we talk about issues of patriarchy, issues of misogynistic interpretations of the text and things like that. We have to also understand how these impact the different markers and categories that are being measured. So I want to give an example, and I want to share some of the work that we've done, and one of the issues that we've looked at, and I have yet to see a lot of work on this in Indonesia, in Pakistan, in Tunisia. But if there are works about this issue, and there are methods to address this issue, please do contact me after, and I'm really interested to find out. Next, please. Mixed up into what we understand. So the issue that I want to highlight is the issue of period poverty. Or we call it menstrual poverty. So period poverty is actually a context or a situation when people cannot manage their menstruation in a safe and healthy way, right? But it is a colloquial term that we use, period poverty. And we want to address this issue to talk about how we can address period poverty and see the implications of period poverty in all the different aspects just now. Just to give a brief idea about what period poverty is. So as I said just now, when somebody or when a menstruating person cannot manage their menstruation, we call it period poverty. So what are the things that we need to look at when we talk about menstrual health? Knowledge, learning, understanding of what menstruation is, what period is, understanding what menstrual cycle, and then they also need materials, right? Period products like sanitary pads or menstrual cups or reusable, disposable sanitary pads. And then we also have facilities, having toilets, having clean water, disposal management. We are running And then health services, if something is wrong with them or they're in pain, they didn't know where to go, who to get help from, right? And having these resources available to them. And then also having positive, respectful environment that is free from stigma and psychological distress. So meaning there's no taboos, or there's very little taboo around the society around issues relating to period. Just like as I'm mentioning about period and menstruation here, some of us may understand what I'm referring to when we're talking about stigma and how society views menstruation and how this affects women's life. And then we talk also about inclusivity, the ability for women and girls to manage our menstruation with dignity. We're not discriminated because we have menstruation. We're not put into a different place. We're not restricted from getting education, or we're not being elected to be leaders because we're considered as emotional, for example, because we have menstruation. So inclusivity is also important. I would like to give a picture of period poverty and how we can see different cases and how diverse the issue can be. In very severe cases, for example, in really remote areas, we find that everything is missing, right? Girls and women may be severely affected in all areas. They might not have a clear understanding of what menstruation is, menstrual cycle is. They don't have access to clean water, or they don't have access to toilets, and then they also don't have access to the products, meaning that they might be in condition of poverty, where economic poverty, where they don't have access to either disposable sanitary pad or reusable sanitary pad, any product that's safe and healthy and allows them to go out to go to school. And because of that, a lot of young girls are taken out of school because the parents have to make the difficult choice to choose whether to send the girls to school or to and pay for the sanitary pads, or they keep them at home, right? And because of the lack of understanding and knowledge about menstruation across the generation as well, sometimes girls are married off early. Then we have issues of child marriage as well in this case that restrict the growth of women and children, and also may have can cause harm in terms of their health and their safety. And then we also have different issues relating to health and safety. We know that some of the girls who are in very rural and remote areas don't have anything to manage themselves. So they also feel that, for example, the blood or the menstrual blood is dirty and it's shameful. So there's a lot of also issues related to mental health. That's an example in rural, remote areas. When we go to like urban areas, right, we have a lot of developing cities, and there's a lot of development in the city to ensure that there is facilities. For example, we have clean water in the city, life is much better in the city, girls go to school, high rates of education, but there are other issues that restricts girls and women's ability to manage their menstruation. So for example, we know that among the urban poor, which is a rising number, and we see this with development as well, and further impacted by the pandemic, right? So because of the pandemic, there's a lot more people who have lost their jobs, who have lost their source of income. So in the last 2 years, we've seen a rising case of those who can no longer afford to buy sanitary pads even. So this means that girls and women may be restricted from going to school or from going to work. So even though they have access to facilities and education, they might not still have access to the sanitary pad. But the underlying issue that exists is also the issue of taboo and stigma around menstruation, right? So there's a lot of misunderstanding about what menstruation is. What is it? Is it something that's supposed to be concealed, or is it something that's supposed to be embarrassing? Because we know that women and girls make up almost half of the population of the world, right? In our different countries, they make up a slightly different number, but it will almost always be half of the population. And women and girls experience menstruation for about 30 or so years of our lives, 30 to 40 years of our lives. And it's not something we can stop generally, right? Something that happens on a monthly basis. So this is something that affects women's lives. But largely, the issue of menstruation is not something we've discussed. and it's not something that we talk about because of taboo. And this taboo is sometimes embedded within our culture and within our social groups as well. So the context is important, and because we conceal the issue, then we don't get to help the people who need help, and we don't get to address the issue at policy level. Next please. So what we've done in the last 2 years since 2019 is we are under Peduli Merah. Peduli Merah means to care about the color red. It's just symbolic to menstruation. So what we've done is we want to raise awareness. Prior to 2019, we barely see any reports of issues relating to period poverty. So given the explanation that I've given you about what period poverty is, I think you can realize how big the problem is everywhere, not just in Malaysia, not just in developed countries where they have addressed period poverty like Scotland, New Zealand, where they've given out free sanitary pads, right? Even in a lot of different countries, we can understand that period poverty is a real issue that affects a lot more women and girls than we care to realize. So what we started off doing is raising awareness, and that was a big part of the first year of our work, right? To raise awareness, we conducted different talks outside, and we also did, and then we went into the pandemic, so we had to move the talks to online platforms. And interestingly, we saw that the conversations were taken up mostly by youth groups, and particularly youth groups including Muslims. So they're not particularly Islamic groups, but Muslim women and Muslim men who care about the issue of women and realizing how important the ability to manage our menstruation is, because it is a basic human right. And the collaboration between the different units within our societies is, I think, one of the key important things for us to do in addressing issues relating to women and in highlighting Rahmatan lil Alamin, right? We have to work together. We cannot just work in our own areas. As an academic, I can stay in my office, right, write a journal article or go to a conference, but it's hard for us to see change in our society if we don't work with others. So we managed to work with different NGOs, and we managed to set up a platform, which is our Peduli Merah. And from there, we worked with media, and we saw a spike in reporting about period poverty, and that really created a massive boom in terms of interest from the society about the work that we're doing, about the issue of period poverty itself. So I'm sharing some of the news articles. So from having almost zero reports on period poverty, we saw a spike from 2020, and then with the pandemic we saw even more, and we managed to engage with Maulid, or our Islamic religious body in Malaysia, which is under the government, who gives out like zakat and baitul mal, and we managed to talk to the former Minister of Religious Affairs, who helped us also to address the issue. So you can see, like, the picture's not very clear, but the second picture is him. That's not just something that, you know, that is addresses also the issue of male participation and support in addressing issues of menstruation. So his role as a leader, showing that he cares and showing that this is not something for us to be ashamed of. We have to show that we care about our women and that this is a basic right for us to address. So
1 minute lagi, sister. 2 more
thank
minutes.
you so much, Wirid. Okay, I'm just finishing up. So we kept on going with our awareness and working alongside a lot of different bodies and different groups to address the issue of period poverty in Malaysia. And we saw an amazing change in the kinds of things that were happening on the ground, but we had not heard yet what was happening at the policy level in terms of policy change. But then in 2021, late 2021, next slide please. Finally, the government released in budget for 2022 that 130,000 teenage girls were going to receive free monthly personal hygiene kits. So they had taken, or the government now takes it seriously and realizes the implications of women and girls not being able to manage menstruation. So we saw a very impactful situation. The other one, recently Malaysia, like some of the other Southeast Asian countries, were affected by floods, right, in December in 2021. And for the first time, most of the NGO realized the importance of menstruation for those who were relocated. So most of the NGOs and the relocation centers called out for donation of sanitary pads and disposable panties for women and girls who are in reallocation centers. So that was a big, I suppose, improvement and change. And I want to highlight that sometimes we think about big issues, right? But we don't realize the issues that affect the day-to-day lives of women and girls. And this has a real impact. And as women, we know how important it is for us to be able to manage our menstruation in a safe and healthy and dignified way. And these are issues that are pertinent for us to address in order to highlight, because it affects the education of girls, it affects the dignity of women, it affects the ability for women to participate in social and political spaces. So I hope that the example that I've given today is something that can give us a different view of Rahmatan lil Alamin. You know, maybe it's a small example, very specific to this particular issue, but I think it's an example of how we can deliver Rahmatan lil Alamin. Inshallah, may Allah accept all our good deeds. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sister Fatima. I would agree with you that we also have to address the women's problem, the day-to-day problem of women and girls that we are facing. And one of the problems that's still until now is about, we call it poverty period. I just heard this term basically. Usually in Indonesia we call it like menstrual taboo, in which that during the menstruation actually women have kind of discrimination as well as seclusion in terms of health, education, and other social life. Thank you very much for reminding us about this very important issue, especially about the right of
one of the things just now that
reproductive health for women, and how actually Islam as the blessing of
I hope we have more sessions like this, and we can create
mainstream in this principle of the protection of women.
Coming up with better
Thank you very much
not just at our local
so, ladies and gentlemen,
but also to come together and
after all
larger
the
issues that
speakers
affect not
have
just women, but how women can also be
their
factors of change
presentation, the
for our
experience from
societies in bringing about
Indonesia
a better
that
representation of
by
Islam
Fatayat
and in
Ulama as
highlighting
well as Aisyah
the role of
Ahmadiyah.
Islam
We
and
also
Muslims
heard about
in
the
bringing about
experience of
Rahmatan
Pakistan,
and Alamin. So thank you again very much.
and also
I really
Tunisia
appreciate
as well
being
as
able to be here
Malaysia.
and learning from
I
all of
believe
you.
that
Assalamualaikum.
you have like some question for the speakers. I see some questions already in the chat, in the Q&A features, and I will read it one by one. And I'm sorry that because of the time constraint, I don't give you specific time to open your mind to drop your question. So I will just read it. Okay, let me see. Okay. Yes, we have some questions from Ustaz Podas to Professor Dr. Munjia. This is I will read it in Bahasa, so please, Ginanjar, please translate into Arabic to Professor Munjia. But actually there are some Arabic translation already ya. So pertanyaannya adalah untuk Profesor Munjia dari Az-Zaituna, Indonesia. Kenapa milisi ISIS, Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, di Suriah banyak berasal dari Tunis dan tidak sedikit dari kalangan perempuan. Bahkan salah satu faksi di ISIS yaitu Al-Hazimi adalah faksi yang paling radikal dan mereka berasal dari Tunisia. Jadi Mas Ginanjar, apakah bisa diulangi di translation mungkin ke bahasa Arab sehingga Profesor Munjia bisa langsung meresponnya? Boleh seperti itu?
Thank you everyone.
Thank
Thank you very much, Sister Sihar. So, speaker and also sorry, mungkin karena agak technical saya
ممكن أجيب؟
PM in Jakarta time. So, Professor Munzia,
أقدم الجواب؟
Okay, please, you can answer this question first. Apologize for
شكرا مصحف مقدس. أنت ذكرت أن الكثير من التونسيين ذهبوا إلى القتال في سوريا. أولا ذهبوا إلى سوريا والعراق. أنت
we hope that after this seminar we will have some continuous
سمعت إلى السؤال. أريد أن أجيب. أولا أنت لما تقول كثير هذا فيه التجني على التونسيين. صحيح هناك مثلهم مثل غيرهم الذين ذهبوا إلى القتال في سوريا وفي العراق من العالم كله، من لندن، من أمريكا، من فرنسا، من سائر الدول العربية، وهي كانت موجة انتشر فيها التطرف العنيف. وللتطرف العنيف في عدة أسباب، منها أسباب الفقر، منها أسباب الجهل، منها أسباب سد منافذ الإسلام إلى غير ذلك. ولذا التهمة لا تكون فقط للذين ذهبوا من تونس. أما قولك هناك عدة منظمات إرهابية في تونس، هذا غير صحيح. ليس هناك منظمات إرهابية في تونس، هناك فكر متطرف. هذا الفكر المتطرف موجود كما هو موجود في ماليزيا، في اندونيسيا، في باكستان، في افغانستان، في العالم كله. ولكن جماعة الزيتونة في هذا المجال واقفة بالمرصاد تقاوم هذا التطرف بالفكر وبالسلوك. كذلك المرأة في تونس لها دور كبير جدا في مقاومة هذا التطرف، لأننا لاحظنا هو الذي قد يجر أبنائهم إلى التطرف العنيف، وقد يجرهم هم إلى التطرف العنيف. كما كذلك جهلهم بتعاليم الإسلام السمحة وبالرحمة وبالتعايش وبالحرية الدينية وغير ذلك من الإسلام التي يتعايش. مثلا نحن في تونس لنا منظمة أنداد العرب تقدم قروض للنساء الفقيرات وهن من فيقومن بمشاريع. هذه المشاريع توفر لهن العيش لأطفالهن ونسائهن. كذلك تقوم بإحساس توعوي. أنا كأستاذة في هذا المجال على الميدان قابلت أكثر من 10 امرأة في هذه المنظمة ووعيناهن ضد التطرف وكيف يحمين بناتهن من هذا العنف، لأن القضية لابد أن تكون استقلالية مادية وتوعية متواصلة وعمل ميداني. وهنا أشكر المتدخلات التي تحدثنا عن العمل الواقعي. نحن لابد أن نجمع بين المقالب والكتب والندوات العلمية وبين العمل الميداني. فلنا علاقات ولنا لقاءات مع النساء منذ 2011 إلى حد اليوم، إلى حد البارحة. أنا الآن سأكمل معكم الملتقى وسأتصل بمجموعة، سأذهب إلى مجموعة من النساء لأدربهن على الحوار وسط العائلة وعلى القيادية كيف تكون المرأة قائدة وعلى التعايش السلمي في المجتمع وفي المجتمعات. إذا هناك عمل متواصل ولست الوحيدة التي أقوم بها، فهناك عدد كبير من النساء التونسيين ومن الرجال التونسيين الذين يسيرون على نهج أهل السنة والجماعة التي تقوم على الاعتدال. إذا ابني سؤالك هذا، شكرا على السؤال وشكرا على العناية. لا ننكر أن هناك مجموعة معناتها ناس متطرفون تطرف عنيف، ولكن ليست موجة كبيرة في تونس، وليست هناك منظمة في تونس، فنحن كل يقوم بدوره: التوعية العلمية، التوعية الفكرية، التعليم الديني المتطور. وجامعة الزيتونة تعلمون أن هذه أول جامعة في العالم وهي قائمة، ولكم أبناء عندنا طلبة اندونيسيين هم سفراء لتونس، ينقلون مناهج التعليم في جامعة الزيتونة، من أهمها مقارنة الأديان، من أهمها التفسير. وهنا قبل أن أنهي جواب أريد أن أقول يفضل أن يخرج هذا الملتقى الرائع جدا بفكرة، هي أن تجتمع النساء المختصات في الحقل الديني ويفسرن الآيات والأحاديث التي فسرها الرجال ضد حقوق المرأة وتفسير تمييزي. فلا بد أن تأخذ المرأة مقبض العلم الديني وتنشر هذا العلم، لأن حق المرأة في الدين، حقها في التعليم، حقها في السياسة، حقها في الاقتصاد، حقها في كل مجالات الحياة مكفول بالإسلام. ولكن مع الأسف بعض المفسرين وبعض الفقهاء حجبوا هذا الحق، والذي يؤلمني أن اليوم كذلك هناك مجموعة تريد أن تخاطب المرأة خطاب التمييز وخطاب الكراهية وخطاب الإقصاء من الفضاء العام. شكرا لكم.
Thank you very much for very comprehensive answer. I really like the explanation of Professor Munzia in dealing with the question. And the next question, let me proceed to the next question from Wahyono Saputra. His question is directed to Ibu Anggia. First is there a special economic program from Fatayat NU Autonomous Body related to women empowerment and economic improvement in the new normal? New normal mean this time after the pandemic, sorry. And the second is, how does Fatayat NU, its role and strategy to work and synergy with the village and also rural government? Please, Ibu Anggia, your time to respond the question from Wahyono Saputra. Anggi? Anggi, are you there?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What is the question?
The question is, first, is there a special program, economic program from Fatayat NU as autonomous body related to women's empowerment and economic improvement in this new normal situation? And the second is, how does Fatayat NU's role and strategy to work with the village and also rural government?
Okay.
The question is from Wahyono Saputra. Please, Mbak.
Yeah. Thank you. First, about the economic program, yes, we are. We during the pandemic era, we have the Madrasah Economic Fatayat Nahdlatul Ulama. So this is just like a training, but the series of training, and then the facilitator is the successful entrepreneur, and also the participants is the member of Fatayat and also out of Fatayat, but they already has just like initiative economic activity, just like they have just catering, and then they have also fashion and others, and this is very useful. I think that after that training, they have just like alumnus, and then they have also like a forum, and then they strengthen each other and sharing together, the pandemic now is dealing with the social media, dealing with the marketplace is the important thing. So we have just like encourage the Fatayat and member to more detail, more ikhtiar to the kind of economic activities. And yes, some of them already very succeed. Just like I'm now in a parliament. One of them also the food also used by the one commission as a snack or as a lunch. This is very, I think this is very good improvement. And others of course. And the second is about, I'm so sorry, the second question is about Mbak Riri.
Question is how Fatayat NU work with the village and also the rural government, especially in the economic development.
Oh yes, yeah. Now in Indonesia we very strong in the very rural government, especially in the village government, and also we work together with the government in the village, especially for women. We call it BUMDes. This is the economic unit in a village, and we promote the Fatayat take a part very big role in that areas. That's why, and this is your subject, Mbak Riri's subject also, when we have pengarus utamaan perempuan pengarus utamaan gender in the every level. I mean, not only in the national level but also in the village level. So when we talking about the economic, means that the economic is for women as well. I think that's the explanation, Mbak Riri.
Thank you very much, Mbak Anggi, for your response.
Sama-sama, Mbak. Yeah.
Okay, I will proceed to the third question. It's directed to Professor Alamin from Mbak Uswatun Hasanah. How to overcome Islamic teaching with the Javanese culture, especially about the role of women in the domestic area. Please, Mbak Alamin, let's respond.
Okay, thank you very much, Mbak Uswah Hasanah. So I think, as I said before, that we have to pick up the moderate and progressive interpretation and egalitarian culture. So, for example, in Javanese culture, there is a word like the couple is garwo, sigaraning nyowo, a half of soul. It means if we look at our partner as a half of the soul, we will not let her to be tired. Yeah, we must help her to be happy. So don't let her to work alone for their domestic tasks and also for the caring of the kids. So that's why we try to pick up the egalitarian culture, for example, by emphasizing the philosophical Java, for example, is garwo, sigaraning nyowong. Sigaraning nyowo, it means that our partner is a half of our soul. This is the first one. Then second one, we can interpret our Islamic religious text using a moderate and progressive interpretation, which is, for example, in terms of the responsibility for educate children in the Al-Qur'an. It is in Surah Luqman, yeah. Wa idh qala Luqmanu libnihi wa huwa ya'iduhu ya bunayya la tusyrik billah inna syirka la dzulmun adzim. So this for Luqman. It's not only for women. And also, kullu mauludin yuladu alal fitra. This everybody is fitra when they was born, but then their parent will educate them to be whatever. Yeah. So it means that it's not only the responsibility of a mother or women, but educate the children is also father's responsibility. And in the level of Ruhani level, yeah, sharing domestic tasks is a must, is needed right now. Why? Because the access of women in education is more and more, and the access to work is also getting better. So it means that now, for example, in Indonesian cases, many universities they have the best female graduation, yeah, not from male students, but from female students. And according to the data from the National Civil Servant in Indonesia, that since 2018, the civil servant in Indonesia mostly women. So because of accessing education is getting better, then accessing to the economic is also getting better. It means that sharing domestic tasks is must, is needed between men and women, between husband and wife, because now the society is getting to the not communal culture, but getting to the individual culture. It means to find grandma, grandpa to be with us is very difficult. Yeah. So also right now we did research just last year about the trend of the house husband, trend bapak rumah tangga. So not housewife, tapi house husband. Yeah. In Indonesia, during the 30 years, yeah, the increasing number of the house husband is 110%. And in the family with the house husband, which is what I mean with the house husband is the husband who have the domestic task and also has responsibility for the educate children, is around 40%. The wife has more income than the husband. So it means there is social changing. Yeah, there is social changing in our community. So if our interpretation still textual interpretation, still literal interpretation, still misogynic culture, it means it will it doesn't work. Yeah, it will not work for the happily for the Rahmatan lil Alamin. So no choice. If you are going to have Rahmatan lil Alamin, try to pick the egalitarian culture and modern and progressive interpretation. So try to combine the culture and also the Islamic value, which support to the Islam as Rahmatan lil Alamin, including for all the whole family. I think that's all, Mbak Riri.
Thank you very much, Prof. Alim, for your question. Since we have no more question, I would like to raise some issue to the speakers from Malaysia and from Pakistan, as well, if I may, to Ambassador Muhammad Hassan. If you like to respond, we would be happy to hear that. So to Ambassador Muhammad Hassan, thank you very much that you are still with us until now. Yeah. So I'm interested in pressing about the challenge that you mentioned about some gender discrimination and also violence that's still rampant in the Muslim world, about the Islamophobia that increasing in the world, as well as the increasing of radical groups that attract Muslim community to some extent. So do you think do you have some ideas or thought that we can in a concrete way, how like the Indonesia, Malaysia, Indonesia, and also Pakistan can work together to foster the women's human rights, especially in the context of Islamic teaching. Please, Ambassador, I'm sorry that I proposed those questions for you.
Thank you very much, Madam. and I'm really highly impressed with the speeches which was made, presentation which were made by the panelists in the seminar, and I'm really highly educated. Well, the question which you have posed to me, it has basically it has two parts. One part is the mixing of culture and religion in the Islamic countries. For example, some of the cultures, some of the un-Islamic practices which are being practiced by us, the Muslim countries, because of our vast cultures. And the second part is, what's going on in the world about the Islamophobia around the world, where in countries where Muslims are in minority. I'll first come on to our own part of the problem. Majority of the Muslim countries, which we say the member of the OIC, we are basically Muslim majority countries. And there are different cultures, different traditions, and that is completely different from others. Let me talk about Pakistan, Indonesia, and Malaysia. We all are here in Asia. Basically, we inherited cultures which was basically from the Hindu culture, some from even the past other practices. And now it has come into our culture as being an Islamic country. I'll talk about Pakistan. There is a tradition in some part of Pakistan, not in all part of Pakistan, which is called wani. Wani means, to trade women in order to settle feuds between two tribes. It's a tribal culture, and it's against Islam, and it's against our constitution and our law. But this is still being practiced in some places, and law enforcing agencies get hold of them and they punish them, but it is still prevalent. So for these sort of things, I think we all Islamic countries have to see and purge those un-Islamic cultures from our own society. Nobody else is going to do that. We have to do it by ourselves. But for the other part, for the Islamophobia, and where targeting Muslim minorities in other countries where Muslims are in minority, I think this is the collective responsibility of all the Muslim countries, especially the members of the OIC. And being the OIC has given this platform to work against this thing, and I mentioned in my message that this can be done in two ways. By giving them the true, educating them about the true teachings of Islam, telling them, because most of them are ignorant. And secondly, trying to force them, in fact, to abide by the international conventions on human rights, of which we all are party to. And so I think there is no second word in that. OIC already has a platform. They have established a monitoring mechanism there, and and they publish a report about all these things. UN human rights organization, independent human rights organizations, the Genocide Watch, they are warning the humanity about these issues. So I think here we have the responsibility, all Muslim countries, especially the bigger Muslim countries like we are here, Tunisia, Indonesia, Malaysia, Pakistan, and others. I think we need to work closely. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Muhammad Hassan, for a very precise answer to what the issue that I've raised. Thank you very much for your presentation and also your patience during this panel session. So I have a question also that I raised to Sister Fatima from Malaysia. Even though you are talking in a very specific issue about human soul, especially in the context of public pyramid, do you think do you find like any challenges, especially or barrier, especially from the religious group in advancing
those women reproductive health in Malaysia?
Thank you very much, Mbak Riri. I would like to also take some points from His Excellency Dr. Muhammad Hassan just now when he talked about inheriting cultures, right? And how this sometimes get mixed up into what we understand as Islamic, but it's not really what we have revealed or what we can interpret that is correct from our religion and from our religious texts. So we do have several issues that are embedded within the Muslim community, for example, or we have responses from Muslim groups and individuals about how we are approaching the issue of period poverty. Because my presentation was very short, I wasn't able to discuss this just now. So thank you for the question. So, for example, like I said just now, the issue of menstruation or period itself is very taboo, right? And especially more taboo within the Muslim community. So there's a lot of ideas about menstruation and periods. For example, we're not supposed to speak about it in public. It's very shameful. When you have menstruation and you have a problem, you can't ask out loud. You have to keep quiet, right? So sometimes it's confused as women asking for help about their menstruation. For example, if they don't have any money to buy sanitary pads, they might be shamed for asking for it, right? Especially if they do it publicly. So when we are running campaigns to highlight or to let people know what is period poverty, who are the people who may be affected by period poverty, where you can get help, there are always some form of pushback from the community, in particular the Muslim community, about how you shouldn't discuss this in public. This is a shameful issue, for example. So that's one of the issues that we are trying to overcome in terms of telling people that this is a basic right for women and girls, and if we keep it hidden away, then we cannot address it. So we have to learn to communicate it in a positive and healthy way. The second issue that we have has to do with also misunderstanding about managing menstruation, which has to do with washing of the disposable sanitary pad. This is largely practiced by the Muslim community in Malaysia, which is quite unique and quite problematic, because the disposable sanitary pad, which is a common product used for menstruation, can be thrown away, right? Actually, if you just wrap it nicely, you can throw it safely. But there is an understanding among the Muslim community that you are supposed to wash it. So they believe that if we don't wash it, then there's going to be like jinn and shaitan that will come and attack women and girls who don't wash the sanitary pad. So we've had clarifications from our religious leaders and ulama to say that, there are no dalil, there are no concrete texts to say that this is the case, so you don't have to do this. But we've seen a lot of pushback from Muslims, especially in questioning the validity, and they're saying that this has to do with hygiene issues, and if we don't talk about this, safety of girls and women, and issues of hysteria, for example, relating to jinns and shaitan. So there are definitely challenges, but we've been very lucky because we are also able to work with like fiqh scholars and other academics and religious teachers who are willing to undo this kind of teachings in the community. So it's really, I emphasize, it's really about working together, like not just, academics working at universities, NGOs working on the ground, politicians working elsewhere. So what we've seen with period poverty in Malaysia is that everybody works together despite their political parties, despite different religions, despite different ethnicities. So it's a good example of how we can come together to, practice Rahmatan Alamin. So there are definitely challenges, of course.
Thank you very much. Very impressive. Practice of Islam Rahmatan lil Alamin, through the raising awareness about poverty period. Okay, so I will be fair. I will pose the last question to Senator Sihar Kamran, from the Pakistan. Since you are politician, women politician, we are very proud of you. So my question is, do you find any challenges or difficulties, especially in promoting the sensitive gender
regulation in Pakistan.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to answer this very important question. Yes, we do face misperceptions and our rigid attitude, especially from our colleagues, because sometimes these are not based on facts and realities. Especially, I would like to share my experience when I moved the legislation to restrain the child marriages, because this is very important that we give the girls their equal rights and opportunities to education, to their health, and to their life. And we have to understand that no marriage can take place without the consent of the girl and the boy. That is what the nikah is. I try to gather data from all over the Muslim countries and even a fatwa from Al-Azhar Sharif, and I moved the legislation, but it was really difficult for the people to make them understand that how important the girl's health is and how much problem they face when they are married, when they are very at a young age, and then if they get pregnant and they deliver immature child, or their child mortality rate is increasing, and then population growth is another challenge. So all these issues are very important, that girls should also have their right of education, which our constitution, the constitution of Pakistan guarantees these rights. But as far as the customs and the traditions, we are, I think we are the victims of these traditions and we are not ready to accept the reality. So there are challenges, especially when we move the legislation like violence against women. Because people have different parameters of thinking what is violence and what is not violence, and where the independence of the girls or their right to live on their own is compromised. So there are misperceptions, and we do face that. And it's not only that we are talking about the general public, even the colleagues who are very well educated, who understand, and who they also, they come in opposition and they don't let this legislation pass. I tried my best. If I'm a former senator, I tried my best to get the law passed from the Senate. I got it passed from the standing committee, but was never able to have the voting in the House. But then Senator Shari Rahman, she moved the legislation. She got the law passed from the Senate, and now this law is still pending in the National Assembly. So there are misconceptions, and the only way forward, what I believe, is education. Only good education can create awareness, and which is, I believe, is the basic of our women empowerment. She also challenged, she was a strong voice against extremism and terrorism. But her life was full of challenges. People were not ready to accept her as, initially, that a female could be the prime minister of a country. So despite, we talk about, independence, we talk about our constitution, we talk about our culture, but there are some misperceptions. Those exist in the mind of the people, and they are the hardliners. They are the one, they ruin the society, and they ruin the real essence of our religion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sister Sihar. And our distinguished speaker, as well as the participant, we are almost finished to wrap up the session. But before that, let me ask the speakers to have 1 minute closing remark from each of you. I will start from His Excellency Ambassador Muhammad Hassan, please, for the closing remark.
Thank you very much, Madam. This is one of a very fruitful session which I ever attended, especially on the issue of women and the status of women in Islam, which has been controversial in some part of the world. And of course, we should also admit that there are many things which should not be in our societies, in the Islamic societies, regarding the status of women which are there, and which I blame the culture of our countries, and hope that this exchange of views and ideas among the 4 important Islamic countries will help us understand the issue globally, and we will be able to make a concerted effort in order to address these issues. And thank you very much for Republic of Indonesia and the organizers in FIT, Muhammadiyah and Nahdlatul for arranging this one. And I think we should continue with these exercises in future and learn from each other's experiences. Thank you very much.
Thank you, His Excellency. So I will move to Professor Dr. Munjia Suwaihi to give a 1-minute closing remark, please.
أقول شكرا أولا لحكومة إندونيسيا وللمنظمين المنظمات التي نظمت هذا اللقاء الرائع جدا، وأضم صوتي إلى صوت سعادة السفير محمد حسن أن تستمر هذه اللقاءات وهذه التجارب الرائعة، وأقترح عليكم أن يكون لقاء قادم إن شاء الله يضم النساء المفسرات للقرآن الكريم، والتي تناولنا قضايا يستعملها البعض للتمييز ضد المرأة ولقهرها ولمنعها من المشاركة في الحياة الاقتصادية والاجتماعية والسياسية كما هو صائر الآن في أفغانستان من طرف أشخاص لا يعلمون الكثير عن الدين الإسلامي، وأن هذا الدين دين الحرية، دين الرحمة، دين المساواة بين الجنسين في جميع حقوق الحياة، في جميع حقوق الحياة الاجتماعية والاقتصادية والسياسية. ونعلم السيدة عائشة كيف شاركت في السياسة، ونعلم أم سلمة كيف يعني حلت مشكل كبير جدا في غزوة الحديبية إلى غير ذلك من نساء العالم. ونعلم أن هناك 10,000 امرأة روت الحديث، وأن العلماء قالوا ثبت عن الرجال أنهم كذبوا في رواية الحديث، ولم يثبت على امرأة واحدة أنها كذبت عن الحديث. وتعلمون أن السيدة عائشة كانت أستاذة، كانت تعلم الصحابة. فلنواصل هذا المنهج، ولكم الشكر الحقيقة، فلكم المبادرة اليوم مبادرة رائعة جدا. بارك الله فيكم، وإن شاء الله نجتمع في الخير، وشكرا لكم.
Thank you very much, Professor Munjia. I will move to Sister Fatima. Please give a 1-minute closing remark.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for organizing such a wonderful session. I have learned a lot through the session, and to the speakers, His Excellency Dr. Muhammad Hassan, Prof. Mongia, Prof. Alima, and also Sister Anya. I learned so much from all of you. MashaAllah, Jazakillah khairan kaseera to all of you. And I think one of the things just now that Mbari highlighted was on how do we move forward together. So I think in closing this, I hope we have more sessions like this, and we can create more conversations that move into learning from each other, and coming up with better initiatives, not just at our local levels in our countries, but also to come together and work on larger issues that affect not just women, but how women can also be factors of change for our societies in bringing about a better representation of Islam, and in highlighting the role of Islam and Muslims in bringing about Rahmatan lil Alamin. So thank you again very much. I really appreciate being able to be here and learning from all of you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Since Ibu Anggia and also Prof. Alim they have to attend another agenda, I would call the last speaker, Senator Sehar, to give your closing remark. Please.
Thank you. I sincerely appreciate the initiative. It was a great learning experience for me, and I believe, and it was good to listen to everyone and to understand that how we can collaborate and what kind of issues that we face at the different part of the world in different countries. And I hope that we will continue this in the future also. My one suggestion is that exactly we need to promote education, and I suggest that there should be an educational channel, so which could have more outreach, where we can help people have education who are unable to go to the schools or who are unable to have the formal education, but still learning should continue. Learning should continue, and that is the best way forward. More we have women in the decision making positions, better legislation could be done, better decisions could be made, better participation could be done. Because I would again repeat the words of the father of my nation, that no nation can progress and reach to the glory unless the women of that country are working side by side. So this is very important. We cannot eliminate the women from our society, and this is the history of Islam. We have seen great women, and we have to follow their example. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Sister Sihar. So, distinguished speaker and also all the participants, since it's almost 6 p.m. in Jakarta time, so we are closing the session very soon. As moderator, I'm apologize for any mistake or inconvenience in chairing this session. So I would like to thank you for His Excellency Ambassador Muhammad Hassan, as well as the distinguished speaker. Today we are learning very much about the role of women organization and women groups from the experience of 4 countries, from Indonesia, Malaysia, Tunisia, as well as Pakistan. We hope that after this seminar, we will have some continuous discussion, as well as synergy and also cooperation between women groups in those countries to address the problem that's still faced by Muslim women in the world, and we also can share and also changing best practices from another countries, for respective countries, I mean. So before we close officially this session, please open up your camera, since we will have a photo group session. And again, thank you very much, especially for the participant who joining this session. I'm so sorry that we have to close this panel very soon. See you again next time. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much. Okay.
شكرا سيدة الرئيسة. شكرا سيدة الرئيسة. كنت رائعة.
Yeah. So please open up the camera for the please. We will have a photo session, please.
As a religion of peace, Islam fundamentally emphasizes companionship, tenderness, and tolerance. The most majority of Muslims know that Islam means